Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1372 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news. And Ukraine slammed Russia with another major drone strike today. Also, Putin has rejected all Ukraine compromise deals and refuses to compromise. And also, France is to start a new form of military conscription very soon. And we have very big news today, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world the day before Thanksgiving, a significant holiday here in the United States of America where many people gather around with their family to give thanks to everything that they appreciate within the Republic and all of the efforts and struggles that they've gone through the year to reap the benefits around this time. Or it's basically a time for everyone to get together and start fist fighting over religion and politics. But nevertheless, it is an absolutely wonderful night because it is the last night before Turkey Day. Hey! And we got a load of news. We got a lot of news to cover. Speaking of turkey, we got the gravy today, as we have been able to hear that over the course of the past 24 hours, the Russian state railways are about to go into absolute bankruptcy. And it appears highly likely that the Russian Federation's government will have to bail out the Russian state railways, which is responsible for 70% of all cargo traffic by volume in the Russian Federation annually. So basically, the Russian logistics system is about to collapse. Also on top of that, while the Russian Federation is still looking at absolutely horrific situations, and I guess you could say they're not really having a lot of stuffing in the Russian budget anymore, they are continuing to refuse the peace plan, much like Granny is refusing that cranberry juice that was made by her daughter over the course of Thanksgiving tomorrow. And it appears that the Russian Federation, outside of the Thanksgiving puns, is absolutely not going to accept any peace deal by the United States, and has stated that they will continue the war until all of their demands are met, once again making it incredibly clear that any peace initiatives with the Russians are absolutely pointless. Meanwhile, the United States of America today has been on the continuous hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow, as U.S. forces are now going to be deployed within the Dominican Republic against Venezuela. The Venezuelans have now conducted their own military exercises today, which can only be described as the Barnum and Bailey's freak shows of wonderment, as it does appear that the Venezuelan military is continuing to display to the entire world they might not really know what's going on, at least on the military side of things, but who am I to judge? Nevertheless, we also have heard that inside of the Middle East there appears to have been a significant attack on one of the major oil fields within Iraq, while at the same time there was a major explosion within northwestern Syria and in the Islamic Republic of Iran. There appears to be a new bunker that was shown today as an OPSEC violation by some Iranian soldiers. Meanwhile, outside of that, we have been able to hear that inside of the Republic of China on the island of Taiwan, the president of Taiwan has stated that they must be ready for an invasion by the Communist Chinese by around 2027, once again making it quite clear that the invasion window is from 2027 to 2032. Outside of that, we have also seen that the Republic of France is restarting a form of a conscription, I guess you could say, prerogative, if you want to call it that. It's not really a conscription, more so, but we'll get into that later in the night. Meanwhile, the Germans are making it quite clear that the Russians cannot win the war, and that the West must position Ukraine to make it wildly clear that they cannot win. The Russian Federation is also continued to state that they will not accept any terms in the current conflict so far with the U.S. proposed peace deal, while the Ukrainian armed forces have continued to hold the lines today and have inflicted significant casualties on the Russian Federation's armed forces. And I guess you could say that that's a little bit of gravy as well. Oh, damn. Pull out that green bean casserole, folks, and have a seat, because tonight is going to be a night for sure to talk about. We have a major amount of news around the world, and these are just the larger pieces. And we're, of course, going to be making sure to get into each and every single piece of news, starting with our largest stories first, and then working our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night as we continue to cover this news. But with that, folks, enough of the cheap Thanksgiving puns. It's time for us to get right on into all of the news of the day. So moving us directly into the Russian Federation, the situation in Russia is quite dire at the moment on the economic side. We've been saying that for a while, but it truly is getting worse, because from what we've been able to hear, just recently, just about a few hours ago, no kidding, this is some of the newest news that came out of Russia. Russia is probably going to have to end up bailing out the Russian railway, or the Russian state railway. The Russian government may be forced to rescue the state railway company, which is currently in a small amount of debt. A small amount of debt, folks. It's not a huge deal. It's only $51 billion in debt. Russia is reportedly examining options, including raising prices for rail cargo, or basically raising the rates, which would affect numerous Russian industries. So, in short, to explain to y'all what's been going on throughout the whole war, the railways have had literally nothing to transport. And generally, considering that the railways are a logistics business, transporting stuff is their business. That's how they make money. So what the Russian railways have been doing over most of the war is that they've been transporting basically nothing. They've been transporting some stuff like Russian tanks towards the front lines in Ukraine, usually one-way trips, and they've also been transporting some other cargoes, but in much smaller numbers than they have throughout the rest of history. Because of this, they've been running a deficit, and this is something that's been heavily underplayed in Russia to the point that we've hardly even heard about it, but we're now hearing about it today, according to the news from Reuters. Basically, the Russian railways, because it's a state-run railway, are kind of operated like a government institution. It's incredibly hard, even in Russia, to fire people who are hired onto the Russian railways. So they've kept a massive payroll of employees, a massive amount of rolling stock, a massive amount of locomotives, and a massive amount of railway infrastructure, most of it hardly used. So they're running in the red every year, and they've been running in the red so badly that they make Amtrak look like it's light work. $51 billion in debt in a couple of years for a railroad is pretty damn high. To put it in perspective, the current proposed Union Pacific-Norfolk Southern merger in the United States of America, which is largely more so a buyout of Norfolk Southern by Union Pacific, is $82 billion. That's the whole of the Norfolk Southern Railway. $82 billion. The Russian railways themselves are just in debt alone up to $51 billion. That's about 2/3 of a full Norfolk Southern Railway in debt. So basically, this company is about to go into receivership. And that would seem like a small thing, because a lot of people always think, the railways, they're more so of a background sort of an industry. They're not one that's at the forefront and incredibly important. But what this is the most important logistic corridor in the Russian Federation. It accounted for, in the pre-war figures, 70% of all cargo transport in the Russian Federation. So if the railway goes under and the entirety of the Russian railroads is not saved, the Russian Federation will be losing out on 70% of their cargo volume in transportation ability annually from that point forward, making this a do-or-die situation for Russia. If the Russian state railways actually do go into receivership due to the unbelievable amount of debt that they have and the fact that they can't pay off the debtors, that means the railroad is going to quite literally stop operations here probably within the next few months. And if that happens, that is quite literally apocalyptic for the Russians, because while we've been talking about the exports of oil and gas and other sorts of products, we also have to remember that the Russian Federation is a nation of 110 million people, and those people are not stationary. Those people buy clothes, those people eat, those people buy basic goods. All of those goods are most likely transported at some point by the Russian state railway, and if the Russian state railway ceases to exist, practically any goods in any store of any type anywhere in Russia are not going to be there. As a matter of fact, a lot of people probably aren't going to have jobs. A lot of businesses in Russia, a lot of industries for that matter, are rail served, meaning that they load their cargo straight onto a train, and that train takes that rail car to wherever its end destination is, and that rail car is unloaded at that industry without it ever being loaded onto an 18-wheeler. Meaning that a lot of people aren't even going to have a job, because most companies aren't even going to have a way at that point to take their cargo and load it onto a train to ship it off somewhere for someone else to receive it and for them to make some money. So this could end up being the very end of the Russian Federation, even before the oil industries create the inevitable collapse of the Russian economy. If the railway collapses, it is quite literally the end times in Russia for everyone in the country. Most everything's going to grind to a halt at that point. A lot of people have been talking about this. And now I've tried to simplify this as much as I can, because we could get into, I could get into the myriad of stuff and rabbit holes on how railways operate and all of the different stuff in between, and go through a million different points of analysis on how this will impact the Russians, how the Russians might be able to try and save the situation, and everything else in between. But the situation we're looking at right now, in short, in a very simplified way, is extremely grim within Russia. And a lot of people have been talking about this, the fact that the railway, the national railway itself, is about to go bankrupt, and what this is going to mean for Russia in the long term. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that at the moment, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So right now the symptom is there's a major railway in Russia, the state railway, that's about to go bankrupt, at least according to reports. So what does that mean in a larger, bigger picture sense? And it looks like 64% said Russia is on the verge of a very big economic disaster, while 23% said there will merely be cutbacks, and 6% said it will all balance out and it will be okay in the long run. So to me, what this is a symptom of a sick and dying economy, and this is in contradiction with the current negotiating position that Vladimir Putin is taking with the West, because right now he's not making any concessions. He is not willing to end the war in Ukraine whatsoever. In fact, today they came out and said that they are not going to bend at all. So it makes you wonder, why is Russia taking a hardline stance like that while their economy is crumbling like a cookie right now, basically around their entire facilities and their country, etc. So what is the mindset? I honestly don't even know what the mindset is. I think it's basically a hope and prayer mindset at this point. And I would say, like we've been saying for a while, Russia is on the verge of a very big disaster, but it depends on how much help they're going to get from the outside. I have a feeling, though, in the short term, Russia's probably going to continue cooking the books, and they're going to tell the people, you're going to show up and drive our trains or else, and probably threaten people. That's probably what they'll end up doing in the short term. So it's probably not going to result in the railroad actually shutting down. I really doubt that's going to happen, because they have to have this railroad to function. So it'll probably just be desperate measures taken. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that this situation is an extreme one. This is quite literally the verge of a complete collapse in Russia if the railway industry dissolves. I can actually bring y'all to one historical instance that happened actually in America where a railway dissolved and it produced extremely bad results for at least one region of the United States of America. And funnily enough, folks, when this happened, it was the largest bankruptcy of a singular company within the United States in its history up until that point. It was then superseded, I believe, by Enron a couple of decades later. But the company that I'm talking about, and a lot of people who know the railroads will know this one incredibly well, was the Penn Central Railway, or the transportation company. The Penn Central was a merger of the New York Central and the Pennsylvania railroads, which were basically the economic juggernauts of the northeastern area of the United States around New England and what used to be called the Middle Colonies. These railways merged together in the 60s to try and create a larger railway that will be able to compete with the trucking industry much more efficiently and also provide a better service to their customers. Due to a massive amount of infighting, long story short, the company completely collapsed in the 1970s, and this produced one of the worst economic fallouts that we had ever seen in the United States up until that point. The railway, which literally serviced most every single industry within the northeastern area of the U.S., ceased to exist overnight, and this led to a massive loss of industries within that area as they were no longer able to even ship out any end products or any midway products that they were producing, and that led to an economic depression within the New England area that persisted for about a decade or two further on from that. It's a big reason why a lot of people remember the city of New York in the 1970s, along with their loss of cargo traffic by sea, to be a crime-ridden, destitute, poverty-ridden hellhole, was generally because of the collapse of this railroad, along with their loss of all shipping traffic due to the containerization of maritime transport at sea. But basically, that's the kind of thing that you could expect inside of the Russian Federation, but not at a regional scale. This is at a national scale. Unlike American railroads, which are privately owned and operate their own private railways, Russia doesn't operate under that sort of a parameter. The Russian Railways is a state-managed institution, but it does run as a private company. This means that the Russian railways have a monopoly on all railroads in the Russian Federation. There are no competitors, and there is no alternative. So if the Russian Federation's railway collapses, it's not like they can say, oh, well, it's going into receivership, it can be bought out by this other company, and it can just keep going. That's not possible. There's no other company. So if this railway collapses, the damage is going to be extreme. And I could get into the million different ways that's going to be extreme, but that would take about an hour. So we're going to cut that short. Suffice to say, it would be quite extreme. The damage that would be caused to the Russian economy, it would pretty much grind Russia to a halt instantly within weeks. So, because of that, the Russians cannot afford to lose the Russian railways. If they lose the Russian railways, they've not only lost the war, they've lost their nation for the larger part as well. So what they're going to have to do is that they're going to have to bail them out, and they're going to have to at least pay off now a decent amount, maybe tens of billions of dollars of their running debt at the moment, and then hope that the Russian railways will at least be able to turn enough profits that they'll be able to pay off the interest on the remaining debts that they have, and maybe create some sort of a debt payment plan that the Russian Federation could try and enact without paying off the debt completely outright. Another thing that they could try and do is significantly reduce money-losing services, which this one is actually going to be kind of a little bit crazy. They would have to pretty much delete most every single passenger service in Russia if they really wanted to save money. That's actually what a lot of railroads did in America, and that's actually what led to the creation of Amtrak, is that passenger rail actually loses money. There's no way to make money running passenger railways. There's no economical way to make that make money most of the time. There's very few exceptions to that, and Brightline is one of the few in Florida. Generally, the Russians lose money when they run passenger trains. They could cut most of them, but the problem is that Russian citizens usually don't own cars, so most of them rely on the railways to be transported from city to city and from their home to their job. So if they cut a lot of these passenger rails, a lot of these companies, which were about to lose the railroads and completely collapse anyways, are mostly going to collapse because a lot of their workers aren't even going to have a way to make it to the factory or their business to be able to work in the middle of the day to produce anything for the railroads to transport. So there really isn't an easy way to fix this for the Russians. This is going to be something that might even be unfixable and may collapse simply due to the overwhelming problem that is existing right now. But there's also one more thing that they can do as well. They can start to reduce their spending on the war in Ukraine, which means their military budget. If they start to reduce their spending on the military budget, they could divert some of that money into some sort of subsidies or funds for the Russian railway to operate off of, at least to pay the interest. Then they'll most likely start conducting deferred maintenance on their rolling stock and equipment, which will lead to an increased amount of locomotive breakdowns, delays, and also derailments as well, which will cause significant damage to the Russian Federation's railways and its economy well into the future. There's multiple.
Yeah, well, the good news is, even if the state railroad in Russia does go bust and go bankrupt and out of business, the good news is there will still be plenty of railroading going on inside of Russia, because Putin's thug government, they will definitely probably ramp up definitely the suppression of speech across Russia. So they'll simply have to railroad the civilians next if the railroad goes under at this point, I will say, because that's pretty much all they got left at this point. They'll simply silence the dissent once the railroad goes under. So that would be quite interesting.
And also, I saw someone say the railways are in no danger of stopping. The worst thing that'll happen is that they'll nationalize the railway, and then it'll keep running. I think you're missing the part where this is the nationalized railway. There's nowhere to go from here. The nationalized railway also runs off of a budget as well. They don't have an unlimited pocket of money to access. So even if they nationalize the National Railway Company, which is already a nationalized entity, that doesn't really, one, it's impossible. It's already nationalized. Secondly, the other issue is that it's still bleeding money in the tens of billions annually at that point to just try and keep running. So, in short, this is largely an unfixable situation.
It's totally unfixable. It's getting to the point where there's basically a point of no return at this point. I guess you could say at this point that Vladimir Putin's officially run a train on Russia. It's screwed.
Oh, man, honestly, man, I gotta tell you, in between Russia running trains and the U.S. blowing stuff, I mean, it's quite a world to be in these days. It's a crazy sort of a situation. But with that, also, by the way, just in case you were wondering, just in case you were doubting, is this nationalized or not? The Russian Railways, or RZD, is a Russian fully state-owned, vertically integrated railway company. So it is literally the railway of Russia. There's nothing else there, and there's no way to nationalize it. It's already nationalized and state-owned. But moving on from that, I guess you could say, folks, that they ain't getting the turkey and gravy in the Russian railways this year. They're going to have to start cutting down on that budget. And I guess that the Christmas bonuses aren't going to be happening for all the guys who are in the unions in the railroad in Russia either this year. A little unfortunate for them. But anyways, moving on out of the Russian railways, which are quite literally a train wreck at this point, we have also been able to hear that the Russian Federation's government has decided to continue on the national train wreck as of today. Many statements and developments have come out over the course of the day that have started to show us the true colors of Russia for the 9 millionth time. For many people, they are quite shocked. How in the world could Russia reject a peace deal? There's no way in hell that they ever would have. It's not like they've done that 9 times this year, and lo and behold, those people are most likely in senior citizen homes and have dementia, because there's no way that anyone couldn't have seen this coming, because it was coming from a mile away. The Russian Federation has already heard, not even been presented yet, but have already heard that the U.S. and Ukraine have concluded their talks within Geneva, Switzerland, and are now going to be soon presenting the peace plan to the Russian Federation. Kirill Dmitriev, who has blocked us on Twitter, aka Dmitriev the Bitch, has published this picture of the President of the United States, apparently in an Emperor Palpatine lightning storm at the Capitol. Have no idea why, but it said trust the plan. Then after that, the Russians trusted the plan well enough that apparently they also confirmed that the phone recording and transcript that was released by Bloomberg yesterday was apparently an authentic transcript and recording. According to Yuri Ushakov, who is Putin's aide and one of the figures mentioned in the Bloomberg leak, he stated that somebody is listening, somebody is leaking, but not us. So apparently confirming that the audio and the audio recording of the phone call that that Bloomberg made a transcript of was an authentic phone call that actually was recorded by an unknown group and then published publicly. Unlike Dmitriev, he did not deny the outlet's information or call it fake. He said that someone is leaking the contents of such conversations to disrupt efforts to establish context between Russia and the U.S. I often speak with Witkoff, Ushakov stated, but I don't comment on the content. I can talk on the phone with anyone, including Dmitriev. Why is my conversation with Dmitriev of interest? Someone is listening, someone is leaking, but it's not us. Additionally, the U.S. has confirmed today as well through multiple different channels that the recording is apparently an authentic one. So if you ever wondered, was that real and is someone just trying to drag Witkoff through the mud, it apparently is not the case. It actually is something of an authentic call. According to what we've been able to hear, the president on board Air Force One, which I will not be able to play the clip due to possible copyright concerns, but if you would like to listen to the president say this out of his own mouth, you can click on the link in the description below, which will take you directly to this map. You can click on this link in Washington and listen to the clip yourself, but this is what the president of the United States said to a reporter asking about the leaked conversations with the Russians, as in the leaked audio recording as well as the leaked transcript that Bloomberg created as a breakout story yesterday. According to the president, he is stated he has to sell this to Ukraine. He has to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's the art of the deal. It's simple negotiations and nothing more is what Witkoff is conducting. So that's the statements by the President of the United States. But still, at this point, the President of the United States has confirmed, at least at this moment, that he is also under the understanding that the phone call, the recording, and transcript are authentic, and that that was an actual phone call that took place between the U.S. Special Envoy and the Russian Federation's representatives, including their Special Envoy, Kirill Dmitriev. In short, what we have now heard is that the Special Envoy of the United States of America is actively involved in aiding the enemy of the United States, the Russian Federation, in helping them to try and get much more amenable terms to the point of possibly screwing the United States over in the long run in a possible peace deal concerning the war in Ukraine, is basically what we've generally been able to confirm today from both the Russians and also the United States of America. So that is quite something in itself. That is, I guess a lot of people didn't see that one coming. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of a little bit up in the air about whether or not the Bloomberg report yesterday was a valid one or not. But it does appear that it was actually a valid report, and Bloomberg had actually done their homework before releasing the publication. Still, a lot of people are quite up in arms about that one today, considering that it's pretty much been confirmed by both the Russians and the United States. But moving on out of that, the Russians then afterwards, by the way, with the special envoy practically being a pro-Russian at this point, and trying to get them the most amenable peace deal that they could ever want, the one that the Russians couldn't refuse because it practically gave them everything that they would have refused over if they didn't get it, the Russians are now openly refusing the peace plan. Even after they pretty much gave their peace plan to the special envoy to then force the Ukrainians to agree to. So now we are hearing that the Russian Federation, through multiple different sources, is saying that the war is not going to end. According to a statement by Kremlin spokesman Peskov the Rat, he has stated, "We should not rush to conclusions that the war in Ukraine is close to ending." We also got an additional statement from another Russian diplomat, Ryabkov, that there are no concessions from Russia on key issues on the Ukraine settlement. Additionally, to get y'all the full statement by Ryabkov here, the Russian deputy foreign minister, this is not Sergei Lavrov, but this is the right-hand man of Sergei Lavrov, so practically speaking on his behalf, stated that they welcome the U.S. efforts to seek solutions to the crisis, but refuse to make any concessions regarding the war in Ukraine. I will actually read y'all the subtitles here from the statement from Ryabkov to make sure that we get this in his exact words in English here on this clip. So, we welcome the Trump administration's efforts to find reasonable solutions, reasonable outcomes. Different versions of this plan are a point of negotiation. There can be no question of any concessions, abandonment of our approaches to the key issues, to the key objectives we face, including in the context of the special military operation. I would like to emphasize that the various elements of the Anchorage meeting are in themselves compromise solutions. The president of the Russian Federation also spoke about this. This is the basis we will refer to when we study and continue discussing the version that is currently on the table or will be on the table. But that is a matter of diplomatic and political technique. And it's not a question that can be discussed online. Because there are more serious things that need to be focused on right now. So
Yeah, like the entire collapse of the Russian economy. That's probably a lot more serious at this point. But also at the same time, does Russia not understand the definition of negotiating? You can't say we're going to be open to reasonable solutions, and then the same sentence say we're not going to concede on any point whatsoever. It's like, okay, well, the proper word for that is it's called you're demanding an unconditional surrender of Ukraine. So, I mean, it's not even really a word game. It's like a fundamental misunderstanding of what a negotiation even looks like. It's not even really for propaganda even. They're blatantly saying they're not going to give up.
that's quite literally what they said. I mean, that's exactly what they're saying, folks. We've done this 5 times this year. And, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so far this year, the United States has tried over and over again to get the Ukrainians to agree to a peace deal and then get the Russians to agree to it. And every single time we force the Ukrainians to bend their arm to agree to something, then the Russians never agree to anything at all. And then we go around the circle again. This is something that is getting it was absolutely insane earlier in the year. This is getting absolutely insane considering that it's almost Christmas and tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and we're still going in these circles at this point and trying to talk to the Russians. It's wildly clear they don't want to stop the war, even if they wanted to. Even with everything collapsing in the background in Russia, the railways, all of the major industries, the oil and gas companies, they are still going to keep the war going. And if they are, we have no way to stop that. We have no way at all unless we're willing to give them everything they want. Which, why would we ever do that? Because we're screwing ourselves over at that point here in America. So clearly, for all the people who keep saying that this war has to end, no it doesn't, because the Russians aren't going to end it. So basically, that's out of your wheelhouse to keep saying that the war's got to end because you got no damn control over whether the war is ending or not. The only thing we can control is how it's going to end. And we can definitely turn out the outcome of that into a very favorable American position with how this is going to end. We could arm the Ukrainians to the T. We could give them tomahawks. We could give them anything. Anything and everything that the Ukrainians would need to level the Russians on the battlefield, and to also level their oil industries and other major sectors of the economy that is vital to the maintenance of the Russian state. By doing those actions, we may not be able to end this war when we want to, but we will end it in an American victory someday, and a Western victory as a whole, and that is quite clear at this point. Still, the Russians have made it quite clear they're going to play ball, and quite a hard one at that, and a lot of people have been talking about whether or not the United States really has a lot of paths of options at this point with the Russians, considering that the Russians are making it quite clear before the peace deal is even presented to them, they're not accepting anything. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so in a strange turn of events, the Russian negotiators say they will not make any concessions, but they're open to negotiate about Ukraine. So what happens now? And it looks like 39% said the U.S. will flip the script and go hard on Putin, while 35% said the U.S. will simply brush it under the rug, and 16% said the U.S. forces Ukraine to surrender anyway. So this one here, to me, is pretty straightforward. The U.S. is going to try to brush this under the rug because this is, once again, another massive embarrassment, and the U.S. officials let themselves be embarrassed another major time by Vladimir Putin. They let it happen yet again, and it probably won't be the last time it happens either. So I doubt the U.S. is going to flip the script and go hard on Putin. I really doubt that's going to be the case. I think they'll try to simply ignore this and try to brush it under the rug. They might even start adding in some statements like, sir, Putin was just mistaken. I was fed bad information by my negotiators. They said he wanted to end the war, but actually it was false. You could hear that next. That's all very possible. So I don't think the U.S. is going to force Ukraine to surrender because literally Ukraine can't do that. And even the U.S. officials know that. They can't just outright surrender. And I don't think they're going to force them to do it. So they'll try to ignore it. I'm with the 35%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would be with the 35% as well. The U.S. is most likely going to brush this under the rug because that's what the U.S. has done 5 times prior this year alone. That's what I would assume is going to be the running precedent because every single time the Russians have done this. You know what our answer has been on the channel? It's been a reasonable one. Oh, buddy, they've insulted the United States. They've humiliated us on the world stage. Not only that, they've made the president, who is very ego-driven to an extent, look like a fool, and that usually doesn't do good for ego. So the gates of hell are about to be opened on the Russians, and we're going to give the Ukrainians everything and go all in on them. And then every single time that happens, it's overlooked. we get slapped and we look the other way or we turn the other cheek, and then we sit there and then we quietly restart the peace talk process again after walking away from it for a couple of weeks so that way people will forget that we just failed last time and then we try it again. And that's what we've done multiple times this year. And because we have done that 5 times in a row now, and we're not changing our approach on that, I would have to assume that the approach this time is most likely going to be identical. We are going to get slapped in the face by the Russians, which happened today. We're going to turn the other cheek, pretend that it didn't happen. We're also going to pretend that the Russians actually want peace, and then we're going to come back to this in a couple of weeks and probably even try and force the Ukrainians into an even worse peace agreement to see if the Russians will agree to that one. That's what I would generally assume. I don't mean to be critical of our approach or pessimistic, but there has really been no reason for optimism so far in this year in the diplomatic process on what's going on in Ukraine. The realistic approach that I would have to tell y'all I would take is that if I was the president of the United States, just to, rephrase something that's been said in tweets a lot lately, this peace talk would have never happened. I wouldn't have ever gotten to this point. I would have tried one, and that was the first one at the beginning of this year that the president tried. Because you have to try because it's a new administration. Maybe for some reason they were hostile to the prior administration, and they'll be more positive to this one. But once they show in one peace talk that they're not willing to talk to the administration, the current sitting one, if I was the president, I would have not engaged in another. I would have said, okay, well, if they want to play ball like that, we'll play ball with them for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We would send Ukraine basically anything and everything that he wanted. Hell, we would divert weapons from Israel and Taiwan if necessary that were being sent to them and send them to Ukraine to make sure that the Ukrainians had the largest amount of firepower to go up against the Russians. The Russians would be bombed into submission on the front, and just due to the amount of sheer firepower the Ukrainians are able to leverage at them, they wouldn't be able to make a single advance even in the Pokrovsk this year. Then additionally, we would also see that the Ukrainians are continuously pushed and encouraged to conduct deep strike attacks into the Russian Federation, which have been wildly successful this year. The diplomatic channels would be completely silent. The Russians could reach out to us, but the Russians would have to make it clear that they were willing to actually make some concessions in a round of talks instead of saying we'd like to talk, and then once we get into the talks, again saying that they're only accepting their terms only and nothing less. So if they made that clear every single time they wanted to get into talks, we just keep arming the Ukrainians and let them bomb the Russians until there's nothing left in Russia to even keep fighting for. That would be my approach, because the Russians are clearly not going to take anything else, and on top of that, we're not going to accept defeat. The United States isn't a nation of quitters, and our alliance isn't an alliance of quitters either. And we're not going to be quitting on this simply because, for some reason, we are sitting inside of our houses in air conditioning here, sipping on our nice little drinks and getting our Uber Eats and sitting there and watching all the TikToks. And then we just sit there and for some reason we feel, we're a little bit tired of these other people thousands of miles away on the other side of the world are sitting in a trench getting shot at and bombed at every day. And for some reason we're feeling more tired of the war, sitting in our houses in air conditioning and just kind of watching it on TV than the actual guys on the front lines getting bombed, shot, and killed are every single day. That should really be more so the approach we're taking here in the United States, and that really ought to be the approach of the alliance. If the Ukrainians want to tap out, then they can tap out. But we're not going to tap out on them. That would be my approach, simply put. But anyways, there's also been a bigger question. There's been a really big question today. It appears that according to some U.S. sources, it doesn't really seem that there was a leak from the United States or Russia of the phone call. According to what we have, according to a Wall Street Journal report, the leaked Witkoff-Ushakov call was likely intercepted by a foreign intelligence agency. A European security official told the paper the main suspect is a European country, not the Russians, as Ushakov had been using an unsecured phone line. So somebody tapped the wire and got this phone call, recorded it, and then published it to the entire world, and it apparently wasn't the United States, nor was it Russia, or any agents or officers of those governments involved. That has made a large conspiracy. Which country in Europe was the one that ended up sending out the call? Who in the world did that? Who in the world leaked the recording to the public? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So who is the leaky one? Who is leaking the information? And the reports currently claim that a European country was the one that leaked the Witkoff-Ushakov phone call. And did Ukraine likely do it? And it looks like pretty much people are all over the place on this one. Nobody's sure who done it. 31% said Ukraine likely leaked it, while 30% said they think that Russia likely did it, and 20% said it was likely another EU country that pulled this off. So it turns out, I've heard through back channels that someone involved in those negotiations was not using a secure line. They were not using a secure method of communication. The rumor is on the street that someone was using a third-party app to communicate, and that seems to be the way that it was captured. It looks like some intelligence group out there decided to get into those communications and leak them, and we got those recordings. So that is allegedly what I'm hearing in the background. Now, take that for what you will, take it with a grain of salt. But if that turns out to be true, that was a big, big, big mistake. And that's how that got out there. So, me personally, I think Ukraine likely got it. I think they leaked it, and they probably just did their usual methods to get that, which is, their usual intelligence methods. I won't go any further than that. But I'm with the 30%. I think Ukraine likely leaked it. They have a huge reason to leak it, to basically show the hypocrisy in action, and they would probably be the ones to do it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, folks, someone's got to call the plumber. We got a leak. We got a leak up in here. And who in the world is the person who punctured a pipe to create the leak? That's the question we have here, folks. And there's a lot of people in Europe, a lot of them, that probably could have leaked this. Any one of them. But we know that it was most likely the Ukrainians. I'll tell y'all that I'd agree with Enforcer Matt on that, because the Ukrainians have a really good reason to put this out to the public. It really shows how they're getting shafted. And it doesn't make it a hidden secret, because for some of y'all who may or may not know, the current administration, not trying to, put them in a bad light, but just being honest, have been shafting the Ukrainians basically the whole year. They had them sign the mineral deal, which was supposed to provide them security guarantees. As of today, we'll get to this in a minute, the U.S. is saying that they don't have any security guarantees with Ukraine, and they'll decide what security guarantees they're willing to give Ukraine after the peace deal is done and concluded with. So basically, we might not give them any, and we might just walk away from this without even saying that they have a security agreement. So we scammed the Ukrainians earlier in the year with a mineral deal. Then we've also been shafting the president of the state of Ukraine, which is a representative of their whole nation, several times over the year. We've also been shafting the Ukrainian nation by providing them no support or arms directly over the course of the whole year. The Europeans now have to provide it out of pocket to the Ukrainians and buy it from the United States. And then on top of that all, the United States is now clearly showing through their special envoy an open bias to the Russian Federation in the peace talks and trying to secure as much an advantage for the Russians as they can, largely making the United States, instead of a third-party intermediary, a first-party involved member on the Russian side at this point in the negotiations. So the Ukrainians have a really good reason to show not only the world, but the U.S. public what's really going on behind closed doors, which is basically the Ukrainians getting screwed over every day of the week by the current administration and its foreign policy. So that generally is what's going on right now, and I don't mean to, ruffle up anyone's feathers or say it in more so a direct way like that, but I mean, look at the situation as it is right now, folks. Both the Russians and the United States basically confirmed Witkoff was giving preferential treatment to the Russians instead of the Ukrainians in the peace talks. And that's not exactly a good look. That doesn't really portray administration that's looking out for U.S. interests. There's no way I can even try and spin that to make it sound like, oh, I don't know, maybe they were. There's no way to look at it that way. Russia is clearly an enemy of the state, and to be openly supporting and aiding the Russians and getting a much advantageous position in the peace talks, that's clearly something that is not exactly within the U.S.'s interest whatsoever. So
I think I vote. I'm going to say I think I vote to call the leaker. Let's call them Lil Leaky. I think you know how like all the scandals throughout the history of the United States, everybody has like a nickname. There was a very graphic nickname for one individual that was involved with Watergate, which I won't repeat here. Very graphic. But this one can be a very PG one. Lil Leaky. I think that'll be good.
I got a better one, Matthew. Piggy. Quiet, Piggy. Man, I
Oh no,
like.
that one's already taken. The reporters took that one.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Apparently, folks, the reporters are piggies. I didn't know that. That's news to me. But anyways, that would be my comments on the current situation right now with the entire phone call leak and who did it. It's highly likely the Ukrainians that leaked the call, and good on them for doing it. I mean, generally, I would say that that sort of an action is something that we should not be supporting in our alliances. But considering that the United States is basically betraying an American-aligned country to get nothing from the Russians in the end, honestly, I really can't disagree with this all too much, to be entirely honest with y'all. If the Ukrainians did leak that, they made the right call, and thankfully they did, because they're letting the public really know what's going on behind the scenes. But anyways, moving on from that, and on out of who leaked the call, we do have to move out of the whole region for just a little moment. Just a little itty-bitty moment. And I want to make sure really quickly, folks, that we've covered most of the major news, at least within Washington. Oh yeah, by the way, I do have to include this. We're not going to talk about the whole Tomahawk deal because it's more so conjecture. But the United States did state today, through the Secretary of State, that the U.S. will not agree to security guarantees for Ukraine until a peace deal is reached. So we're not going to promise any security guarantees to the Ukrainians at all until the whole thing is said and done and signed off on as far as the war ending. Then we might give them a security guarantee. Although they're already supposed to have one because of the mineral deal. The mineral deal specifically included that for Ukraine giving up 50% of their minerals to the U.S. and allowing the U.S. to pretty much have them, that the U.S. in turn was going to provide security guarantees to the state of Ukraine. So we've completely just thrown that out the window. We still get half the minerals, but we don't hold up our end of the deal at all. Now we're talking about we don't even have security guarantees with them, and we'll figure that out after a whole entire peace deal is reached. Which ought to be a part of the framework of a peace deal to make it quite clear what the post-war world is going to look like in Eastern Europe. Instead, what we're going to do, folks, because I'll tell you all this is another shisty, used carsman kind of a scam going on right here. We're going to get everything signed and done on ending the war if we can, and then the U.S. is just going to walk off and give no security guarantees because they're not bound to at that point by treaty at all. That's what we're going to do. So this is, like, I don't mean to put this in the most negative light, but this is some used car scammy type tactics here. This is basically trying to pull a fast one on the Ukrainians and give them no security guarantees and then just wander off from this and pretend like they never were supposed to get security guarantees. And if anyone brings it up in the future, they'll be called a liar and nobody ever said that at all. And you're absolutely crazy because the U.S. never was going to give them security guarantees. So this is 100% the setup for a scam. So, if some people don't like that, I'm sorry. But, I would tell you if there was a scam going on with a used car dealership, and I'll tell you if there's a scam going on with the U.S. government as well, and it looks like we're trying to pull one on the Ukrainians right now, which isn't really that nice of a thing.
Honestly, if you really look at the history of the deals done so far, the mineral deal turns out to be not that great after all. The mineral deal that was signed between the U.S. and Ukraine, because what came along with the mineral deal was the U.S. was supposed to be expected to protect Ukraine in the future, and it turns out that we just pulled this new little tactic right here on them, where we basically were going to throw them under the bus again, even after the mineral deal was signed. So. Also, we have to go back even farther than that. The Budapest Memorandum, which basically guaranteed the security of Ukraine by the United States and several other countries, that technically wasn't really upheld the way it should have been upheld. So at this point, Ukraine has no reason at all to trust the United States unless they get something in writing. Like, they have zero reason to trust us.
Yeah, and also Ephemeral Drift said, the mineral deal didn't have security guarantees, only security support and strategic alignment. That's security guarantees. And also on top of that, the President of the United States made it quite clear at the time that the invested U.S. interest in Ukraine due to the mineral deal was the security guarantee, and therefore the U.S. would be strategically involved in supporting and defending Ukraine in the future. And then we just completely backed off of that because that whole thing was a scam and a lie and was another con job. So, that's what it was. I mean, there's no other way to look at that. We just completely backed off everything we said. And we even have those statements on our maps. Like, I can go back months ago and grab those statements directly quoted from the president, where he said the mineral deal and the U.S. Economic interest that now exists in Ukraine will create the strategic interest. And not only that, the reason for a actual form of defense in support of Ukraine. That's what he made incredibly clear back then. So now we're just acting like that didn't happen. But before we move on into the news down in the Caribbean on the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow, we do have to move on into some more unfortunate news that happened today within Washington, D.C. to cover a story that actually is quite unfortunate. And not only that, appears to be something very confused and quite odd, to be entirely honest with you all, as far as news developments go. We have been able to hear, unfortunately, within the capital of the United States today, 2 National Guardsmen of the state of West Virginia were killed in a shooting that apparently involved an Afghan national, or at least an alleged shooter that was an Afghan national that conducted the shooting today. From what we were able to hear, both National Guardsmen from the state of West Virginia were shot in the head in the midst of the firefight, and apparently the suspect has now been apprehended, once again alleged at the moment, and there was a picture of the alleged gunman being loaded into the back of an ambulance, only wearing underwear and nothing else. Apparently, from what we understand, at least according to the story so far, this is actually an Afghan national that at some point appeared to have been aligned to the United States of America, as he did receive a special visa during the last year of the Emirate of Afghanistan in 2020 to 2021 that allowed him passage into the United States, and basically a form of pseudo-citizenship for his involvement and assistance of the United States in our operations in Afghanistan. And today he was involved in, well, at least alleged to be the one involved in the shooting against the National Guardsmen. Unfortunately,
Also, by the way, real quick, there was conflicting information earlier about the status of the 2 National Guard soldiers. I believe they are still alive. I think they're in critical condition. I believe the initial report was they were deceased. That was the initial report, and I think they've corrected that since and say that they're in critical condition.
I've seen conflicting reports. Just going off of the statement from the governor of West Virginia, Governor Patrick Morrisey, he stated at 1:53 p.m. today that it is with great sorrow that we confirm both members of the West Virginia National Guard who were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C. had passed away from their injuries. These brave West Virginians lost their lives in service to the Republic. We are in ongoing contact with federal officials as the investigation continues. Our entire state grieves with the families, their loved ones, and the Guard community. West Virginia will never forget their service or their sacrifice, and we will demand full accountability for this horrific act. At least the governor stated earlier in the day that the National Guardsmen had been killed, although others, including the President of the United States, later in the day stated that the Guardsmen were actually in critical condition. So at the moment, we're unsure whether the Guardsmen are still clinging to life in a hospital in Washington, D.C., or if they have succumbed to their injuries, considering that both of them, from what we've heard from reports, were both shot in the head. We're not exactly sure where the impacts were on their head. Some gunshots to the head are survivable, but it really depends on the location, and even then it can be quite iffy. So at the moment, we're not really sure if the Guardsmen are alive or dead, but this is quite an unfortunate situation that did happen in Washington. We did hear
Just awful. By the way, it's like even if they're in critical condition, or if I think they're in critical condition. By the way, that's my current knowledge of the situation. I believe the a politician there that made that statement about them being deceased, I think he walked that back. I'm not totally sure about that, so don't take that for a fact. But I believe he walked it back and said they're in critical condition actually. But whatever the case is, literally happening a day before Thanksgiving, like that's awful. Like 2 families now have a tragedy on their hands just a day before Thanksgiving at the hands of this pure animal here that carried this out in the streets. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely horrendous. I would have to be entirely honest with you all, folks. The murder of any citizen of the nation is a fairly concerning sort of a matter, and I believe whenever found guilty, the most serious and stringent forms of punishment should be applied, not only as deterrence, but as punishment for the heinous crime. In this particular instance, not only did he shoot at National Guardsmen, which are armed soldiers of the Republic, but he also ended up firing at them and possibly killing both of them, which is also murder, outside of the fact that these 2 individuals were National Guardsmen in the state of West Virginia. If that is the person being loaded in the back of the ambulance, the actual gunman who was involved, I would have to say, regardless of who they are, or whether they're from America or not, these sorts of actions have to be deterred to the strongest measure. And I would say that generally the most strict forms of punishment, either life in prison or possibly being put to death, should be on the table when this goes to a jury trial here in the future, to further deter and punish those who conduct such heinous crimes within this country against our service members. But moving on from that news and that unfortunate tragedy in Washington, D.C., which is quite unfortunate, and I do have to say that Enforcer Matt and me are both also have our concerns to the families of those who were involved in this, as it is an incredibly unfortunate thing to hear that this happened on the day right before Thanksgiving. I do not believe that those guardsmen were going to be on leave to return back to West Virginia to be able to be with their families during Thanksgiving, but that's still a horrific tragedy for their families to be involved in the day right before Thanksgiving when their families were going to be together and celebrating the holiday. So an incredibly unfortunate thing to see. The Secretary of Defense did state that as a result of the shooting today, 500 additional National Guardsmen will be deployed in Washington, D.C. For the indefinite future at the moment. But moving on out of that unfortunate news in Washington, D.C., we are going to be moving on down and into the area of the Eastern Caribbean. And we're going to be changing the tune up a little bit from that unfortunate and terrible story that happened in Washington, D.C. today. And we are going to be moving on into the more trivial and kind of comedic sort of developments that are happening in the Eastern Caribbean with the endless hunt for Captain Crag Sparrow and his band of 40 thieves. But before we move on into that, I do want to take a little bit of a moment to say that I've got to say, folks, it's actually quite a crazy night, at least for the amount of people who are here. I've got to thank everyone for being here. We actually expected there was going to be quite a small amount of people here tonight because we thought a lot of y'all would be enjoying Thanksgiving with the family, but it actually looks like y'all have gathered the family around right before Thanksgiving to watch the Enforcer show. And I got to thank you all so much for being here tonight. I hope y'all been enjoying the news. Well, not really enjoying the news nonetheless, but hopefully getting your fill of the news for the day, good and bad. For example, the unfortunate story that happened in Washington today. And if you are new to the channel, we thank you for being here tonight, right before Thanksgiving. Also, I do have to point out for a little bit of housekeeping on the scheduling, tomorrow the Enforcer channel will be off air. Just to let you know of our personal Thanksgiving plans, we actually don't have any. Our family is kind of in the midst of being in Alabama and Utah at the same time, and also Matthew and me just don't really have the spare time to cook a whole Thanksgiving feast. So generally, we don't really have a lot going on tomorrow, but in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday, which is a tradition on this channel, we will be off air during the day of Thanksgiving, which will be the 27th of November. We'll then be right back on air on the next day, the 28th of November, which is Black Friday. So you can be on air. We will not have any discounts or Black Friday sales going on because we don't sell anything, really. So we won't have any of that going on, but the Enforcer Show will be back on air and running as normal. But with that, folks, before we move on into the news of the hunt for Captain Crag Sparrow, which is basically a comedy at this point, we are going to be moving on into a couple of questions from the chat before we get to that news, and also the rest of the news from around the world. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
Also, by the way, even though tomorrow is Thanksgiving on Thursday, if there is breaking news to cover, I will be putting out a short war video tomorrow, so you can stay tuned for that, by the way. If there's not major news, though, there probably will not be a short war video, but if there is something, though, we will be here to cover it. Rest assured about that. We're not going to miss it just because it's Thanksgiving. But anyways, jumping into our Super Chat questions here, we're going into our first one, which goes to none other than Brookie318. And thank you very much, Brookie. Or Berkey, actually. Sorry, I don't know. I wrote Brookie for some reason. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but Berkey at 318 put in a massive $100 support. And thank you very much, Berkey, for that very, very generous support. The largest super chat of the night, actually. And they said, thank you for the great reporting and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying our report and also wishing us a happy Thanksgiving. We hope you have a good one as well, because Thanksgiving is always a fun holiday. There's always a fun time to be around family and to get to catch up with folks and also have some really good food, hopefully. But also, folks, I do have to tell y'all a little bit of housekeeping stuff to keep in mind, folks, to make sure that Thanksgiving goes by with your family the best it possibly can. Many of y'all know that here on this channel, we have the rule of no religion and no politics to make sure to keep it as civil as possible. And a lot of people ought to make sure to follow those rules during Thanksgiving as well with their families. Don't talk about religion or politics with your family members. Sure, many of them will most likely disagree with you, and some of them will also agree with you as well. But at the same time, folks, it's not about having people agree with your religious or political opinions. It's the fact that you're actually able to gather around with family and be thankful that they're there at all and that you've made it through another year. That's really what the holiday is all about. So make sure, folks, to follow those rules and make sure to hold up the core tenements of the Lee Spring Army, which is removing religion and politics from pretty much everything where it's not absolutely necessary, and to try and make it as civil as it can be. Because I can promise you that if you remove the religion and politics from your discussions at Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving is not only going to be a lot more civil, but it's going to be a lot more enjoyable all around for everyone. But additionally, also, I've seen a lot of people talking about Thanksgiving as a whole, we actually have a lot of international viewers here. About 35% of our audience is made up of viewers that aren't from the United States. And a lot of them have been asking in the chat, what in the world is Thanksgiving? Can someone tell us? And I'm actually going to give you all a little story for all of our foreign viewers who are not from the United States about what Thanksgiving is. Thanksgiving is a national holiday these days, but back when it started, it was actually quite a regional holiday up in the Northeast. Back when America was largely not even a country yet and didn't even have the concept of being a country, there was a group of pilgrims from the United Kingdom called the Puritans, which are a very extremist form of if we would call it a Protestant sect, that's probably the best way to put it, that immigrated to what would be called the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 1620s. Well, actually around 1620. They arrived on a ship called the Mayflower, and they got off. And when you think of the Pilgrims, you usually think of these guys, the guys who founded the Plymouth Bay Colony, or the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And let me see if I can go and show you a picture of what generally people think they look like. This is probably one of the best ones. The tall black hat, the puritanical clothes, so on and so forth. That's what everyone thinks of as a pilgrim. Pilgrims are quite varied by variety, very different from region to region in the United States, but these are the ones that would end up creating the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which is quite an important one in U.S. history. The first year they were here in America was an incredibly hard and arduous year. The harvests failed. They didn't really build enough houses in time for the winter due to how long it took to be able to even plant crops and try and get a bountiful harvest, or even just a harvest at all. And a lot of the pilgrims would end up dying of famine and starvation. During the next year after that, in 1621, they were reached out to by what is called the Wampanoag tribe within this area. The Wampanoags are a tribe of Native Americans that are from this region of Massachusetts that actually helped out the Pilgrims themselves and helped them to be able to know agricultural rules and tricks and tips, at least within this area, that would make a more bountiful harvest. And in 1621, the colonists, or the Pilgrims that survived the first winter, actually had a humongous harvest to work off of. And because of that, they held a feast with the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims as well. Something that's actually not talked about, interestingly enough, in the Thanksgiving story, is that this really wasn't just a feast to celebrate. It was also a diplomatic meeting between the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims, and the Wampanoags were actually requesting that the Pilgrims get involved in arms against another enemy Native American tribe within the area to crush them. And the Pilgrims ended up accepting, and the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims, both in unison, crushed the other tribe. I forgot the name of that tribe, but it's an unknown part of the Thanksgiving story. Nevertheless, this ended up being cemented as a traditional ceremony, at least within the New England area, and over about the next century and a half, this would end up spreading throughout a large part of America. And by the late 1800s, it was an incredibly big holiday across the country. And so, within, I believe it was the last century, let me make sure, when did Thanksgiving become a national holiday? I think it was around the 1910s. Let me make sure to double check it. 1941. In 1941, FDR, right before World War II, declared Thanksgiving to be a national holiday. And now it's celebrated by the entirety of the United States as a moment of thanks for the country, the bountifulness of our goods, our harvests, and everything else to generally be thankful for, like family, friends, your job, basically anything that you could say that you're appreciative of. The holiday is generally made to celebrate that. So for those who do not know what Thanksgiving is as far as a holiday, that is the Thanksgiving holiday in a historical nutshell and also in the modern nutshell of what it is to the United States. Really interesting holiday, very, very regional to the United States. It's not like Christmas or other holidays that we have here in America that are more so religious-based, which generally permeate across the entirety of the European and generally European world in general. Very, very regional. Not many countries have a Thanksgiving holiday or anything like it. But I hope that does give you all a little bit of a background for all our international viewers on what Thanksgiving is and what the holiday means. And with that, a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that humongous, unbelievable support, Berkey, and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I don't know what's going on, but there's like some hooting and hollering. There's some dogs out there going, "Row, row," like outside my window right now. Honestly, I think the owner is going to be saying, thank God my dog made it through that fight. I don't know what's going on out there, but it sounds like some dogs are really going at it or something outside. It's mayhem out there. It sounds like maybe they're fighting over a turkey or something like that. Give us a gobble gobble. Come on, pardon that turkey. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat here. This one goes to BC Skyman, a channel legend, by the way, and he puts in a massive $120 support, all combined together. And thank you very much, BC, for that support right there. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And I do not see a comment attached right there. I'm going back and checking right here. I see the super stickers, though. It looks like he's got the YouTube creature bouncing around, destroying a city with a yellow flag for caution. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you massively for the support, BC Scamming. You didn't throw in a comment, but we are still massively appreciative of your support. And we know that you always have very kind comments to say. And so I gotta thank you massively, BC Scamming, not only for being a rock and pillar of the Lee Spring Army and the community as a whole that's been created here, but also being a supporter of this channel for an incredibly long time. You've been helping this channel to keep rolling for years. And I've got to say that it's a wonderful thing and absolutely incredible to know that folks like you are able to help this channel to keep running, so that way we can make it through the news each and every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. So humongous thanks to you once again. I hope that has addressed that the best that I can. And also I saw Richard Minier, and he brought up something. I gotta bring this up, folks. Tonight's a little bit more of a lax night. It's the night before Thanksgiving. Richard Minier said, did you know that the Ogden Union Station has one of the only two GTELs? Actually, I've seen it. I took a picture of it, and it's on Discord, but I'll go get the picture of it on Google so that way Matthew can see it as well. And I talk about this thing a load, but I'll show it to everyone. I won't talk about it too much. I'll just show it to everyone because it's really neat. This is it. That's not really the greatest picture of it. Let me see if I can get another one. Yeah, this is it. That's the GTEL. Really cool. It's really neat. It ran on bunker sea oil, which is crazy to think that was even legal back then. And also, it's jet turbine powered. So this thing runs off of a jet engine, and I think it had something like 6,000 horsepower. So it was insane, especially by the standards of the day. This thing was nuts. But really cool nonetheless. I've actually seen that thing in person. I went up there about a week ago, I believe, on the train, and I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, this thing is crazy. It's huge. Like, if y'all ever see it, it's not just the main engine. It's actually 3 different pieces. You can kind of see it right here, but this is the first main engine. Then there's the I forgot what that is, but it's kind of like a tender, but it holds the jet turbine. And then there's a tender, almost like a steam locomotive tender behind that, that's carrying all of the bunker sea oil for the train to run. It's really nuts, honestly. It's a crazy sort of a system. These things actually were quite powerful, insanely powerful, and torqued to hell, but really cool nonetheless. I think they're just neat. The Union Pacific made crazy stuff back in the day. They don't do that anymore, but back then, they were nuts. Their designers and engineers were like on crack. They came up with the crazy stuff like the Big Boy, the Challenger, that thing, the Centennials, and everything else. But with that, I hope that is a fun little rabbit hole right there. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the news of the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow.
All right, so our last super chat of the segment is going to go to none other than Bobby, also known as LC39A, another channel legend, by the way. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that 90A Canadian. And we do appreciate that very, very much. All the way from Canada, of all places, the neighbor of America. And Bobby said, which EU will be the first to put boots on the ground in Ukraine? Honestly, Bobby, I don't think that's really ever going to happen personally. Like, I just don't see it happening. France has mused about it before, and then they kind of backed off of it. And we've heard other countries kind of maybe rumor about sending troops to Ukraine. I just don't think they're going to do it. Until NATO can come up with actually shooting down Russian drones over NATO airspace, that'll be the first step. If they do that, then maybe they might be a step closer to sending troops to Ukraine. But until they can protect their own airspace, I would personally say troops on the ground side of Ukraine, very, very low chance, like maybe like 1%, if that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Enforcer Matt on that. I think it's highly unlikely to ever happen. It doesn't really seem like there's a large amount of resolve. There's a lot of gusto sometimes, especially from the Polish and the French, but as far as resolve and follow through, we really haven't seen enough of it to be confident that they would ever put boots on the ground in Ukraine to support the Ukrainians in the conflict. So generally I would say it's highly unlikely, and if I had to pick one, it most likely would be Poland or France. I mean, really, it's kind of a toss-up between the two of them. But with that, I hope that does address it the best we can. A humongous thanks to you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running and make this thing possible. And so with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news, which is the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow, the news from the Middle East, and everything else from Europe and the actual war in Ukraine. So, moving on down into the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow and his band of 40 thieves, we have been able to hear that the United States is now going to be deploying U.S. forces in the Dominican Republic at 2 airports within the country. The Dominican Republic actually, from what I understand, does not have a military. So we're actually going to be basing our forces at civilian fields inside the Dominican Republic. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that there has been a significant airlift today conducted at Puerto Rico as a C-5 Galaxy, our largest aerial transport, landed today within Puerto Rico. Have y'all seen a C-5 Galaxy? Look at that.
That's a big boy right there. That's like that locomotive they used to have called the Big Boy, you know, something like that.
Man, but beyond that, these things are humongous. They can carry full Abrams. I think they can carry 2 of them at a time. So these are unreal in their cargo carrying ability. Because 2 Abrams, by the way, folks, is roughly about 130 tons. Just about. And if they have armor add-ons, it can get on up easily to about 140 to 150 tons. So quite a large carrying capacity. Look at this one right here. This one's unloading equipment in Antarctica. These things are used everywhere for everything, basically. This is the heavy lift of the U.S. Air Force. This is basically our version of the Antonov 225 or the Antonov 124. But one of these landed today in Puerto Rico. It clearly was carrying a cargo. We do not know of what, but it must have been a significant piece of equipment, something of a larger scale, for it to be carried in a C-5 Galaxy. Meanwhile, the Venezuelans, they're getting into a super cool training montage right now. They're working hard on getting the armed forces ready for what's to come. And there's no other way to do that, folks, than rigorous, in-depth, and thought-stimulating training. There's no other way to do it. No other way at all. And that's why today, folks, at Cadia Lamar, on the coast of Venezuela, the Venezuelans gathered up all their gush guns into one spot, and without aiming at really anything, they just started firing into the sea. Witness the awe of the Venezuelan military. Oh my god, it's recoilless rifles! Oh my god! No way!
Are they playing sirens in the background? What is that like noise I'm hearing behind the guns?
I didn't hear it actually.
It's like some noise going on. It's like some sirens, dog yelping, or something going on. I can't really tell.
Oh my god! Is that a World War II era 75mm howitzer? 75mm? No way! No way! I hadn't seen the whole. Oh my god, it is! Oh my god, it is! So when the Marines come on land, folks, it's going to be like Iwo Jima. They're going to get fired at by howitzers on the beach. Wow! Wow! That's, oh my god! And recoilless rifles to boot. Man, this is a museum. This is a real museum right here, y'all. I mean, Commander Hefe, he's running a high-end museum here. This is basically like all the reenactors have come together to try and defend a beach. That's not going to end too well. My god. That is insane.
Oh. Do you think that they'll ever see the B-2 coming? You know, just flying over their head silently, like they won't even see it coming.
I don't think they will. Man, I don't even think they're going to see the Marines landing on shore. Like, I think they're going to be blind to just about everything. My god. Oh, and the mortar! Of course, the mortar!
This is awful. They're committing war crimes against the coastal species of fish like I've never seen before. These poor fishes are getting taken down one by one.
Why the hell are they setting up the defenses, dude, like they're defending a castle at Port Royal in Jamaica back in the 1700s, man? They're about to go, yar, them damn landlubbers are coming ashore, hit them with the cannons. Like, it's like, what the hell?
You know the easy way around this? Like, what's the best way for the United States to simply get around these little minor defenses right here? Like, there's a very obvious solution. Do you see it?
Dude, call up Netanyahu and hit him with a 2,000-pounder. That's what I do.
No, just simply go like maybe a mile further down the beach where they're not like set up in this one little spot and just storm the beach and a mile down the way. Like that gets around the whole defenses.
Dude, the Venezuelans right now, man, are like, men, we are impossible to penetrate. There's no way for them to make it through. Meanwhile, they watch the Marines landing craft over there on that little outcrop. Shit! Pack up your bags, everyone. We gotta move. Like, and then they start trying to run down the beach down there. Oh my god, dude! I'm not gonna lie. I think an amphibious landing is going to be fairly easy to pull off. Also, on top of that, as far as the air defense around Caracas, that's a whole other story. A whole other one. I can't even tell y'all what manpats these are, folks. I think they're Chinese, actually, if I'm not mistaken, but I wouldn't know the actual name of them. Oh, yes, every military exercise is never complete unless if there is enough cameras around to turn it from an exercise into a photo op. We always know that that's something. Okay, he needs to work on yelling.
I was about to make fun of the woman screaming, too. I was about to say, they're going to fight the missile, they're going to fight the missile out of the city. The city's going to get blown up. Look at it.
The woman.
And then the guy comes.
That's a man.
Then the guy comes out. Oh damn! I'm not apologizing for that, but look at this guy right here. This guy said, "Oh, I'm gonna fire the missile. Stand by."
Yeah, that like the woman on the announcement was the woman, but that guy right there, that's a man. Like that is he's like, it's a squad, man. It's like, yeah.
Why are they aiming it at their populated city?
Dude, this guy's going fire into that nursery, man. It's like, what the hell?
Bro, they're going to attack their own people.
Bro. Wow, look at that hand signal.
He said, land here, landing strip.
Bro, he said, send that outbound, like right into the office building next door. Why is he giving hand signals to the anti-air unit that's 3 feet behind him? What's the point of the hand signal?
Bro's waving in the American V2s. Bomb this way, right here, right here.
Did he just say G.I. Joe? Well, hold on, let me rewind that. Okay, it kind of sounded like it, but not really.
This guy's got that warrior ethos that Hexa's been looking for. This guy's got it.
Wait, did they just fire like a pyrotechnic prop? I think it was a prop.
What the hell? And why are they doing this over their city? Why are they on a helicopter pad?
Dude, there's so many questions that you're asking. I have no answers to them. Like, I can't even come up with answers to them. I don't know. Like, this whole thing is stupid. Oh, and they're running away.
Listen to the pictures being taken. The propagandists are hard at work.
Also, by the way, big shout out to Commander Hefe here, flagging the cameraman like that. Really amazing stuff. Also, why in the world is he covering the landing pad on a skyscraper like the Marines are just going to materialize up there while they're walking off? What sense does this make?
I know. This is stupid. Like, they're going to have people stationed on the tops of high-rises? How dumb. Oh, look at that thing.
It is legit pyrotechnics they're shooting off from the bottom level below the helipad. That's a firework.
That is insane.
Oh my god.
They got that Bing Schling 3000 shell blowing up over their city.
Oh my god. So, we can cut this short. The Venezuelans are not standing a chance, basically. A lot of that gusto, a lot of people were like, oh, they might be like the Vietnamese. Man, the Vietnamese, like, they actually meant business. These people are are quite challenged in the whole defense department really down there. So I don't really think they're going to be standing a chance. So now we have asked all the folks out there at home the question: how long are they going to last? And Matthew, how many hours or days does the audience think they might be able to last? And what are you thinking?
All right. So, how long is Maduro's military going to last if the U.S. does invade? Because this is apparently their military exercises showing off their strength against the United States. We can see here they have pyrotechnics on rooftops. They have individuals committing war crimes against the fish on the coast and trying to wipe out whatever fish they had left. And unfortunately, that will put those fishermen with those very large outboard motors apparently out of business. Unfortunately, they'll have to resort to other things like powdered substances. But what is your what is your assessment of the situation right here? And 53% said Venezuela is going to last about 1 to 3 days when this thing pops off. 24% said Venezuela will last about 1 to 2 weeks. And only 13% said Venezuela will last 1 to 2 months. So when it comes to the initial barrage, if we're talking about airstrikes, I have a feeling that Maduro is going to be panicking, and we could see some type of capitulation in the first couple of days. Now, if an invasion occurs, that's going to be a whole nother story. I have a feeling that if an invasion occurred, Venezuela is going to last a very, very short amount of time, maybe a week at the most. The military will probably regroup out at the perimeters of the cities, if not in the jungle, and they'll probably start a guerrilla warfare campaign. That's probably what they'll do. But right now, we don't know what the military action is going to look like. It'll probably be airstrikes, but it could be an invasion. We just simply don't know yet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say I'm with the 54%. I don't think they're going to last too long. And I'm saying 1 to 3 days, not everything all together. It's going to take, we're going to spend a couple of weeks airstriking them to whittle them down, and then we'll conduct a ground assault. But once the ground assault begins, I don't really think they're going to last that long. The morale here is clearly low, as well as their training. And an untrained soldier can tell the difference between their untrained condition and the well-trained condition of, say, a group of Marines. That's going to end up shaking them morale-wise, and they're going to run for the hills. On top of that, they're not even getting paid anything, so why in the world would they ever try and regroup and fight till the last man? Because it's not like anyone's even paying them anything to be there in the first place. So I would generally say I don't think they're going to last all too long once direct ground action begins against them, if it ever does, which, that's also a question as well, if that will ever happen. But I don't think they're going to be around for long. Also, I gotta say, folks, I saw a comical post in the live chat. I gotta point this one out to y'all because I was about to laugh at it, and then I had to compose myself and get through my answer. But someone said, y'all are so crass on this channel. The people of Venezuela live under a dictatorship. They don't even know what kind of dictatorship they're living under. Dude, what the hell do you think this is? North Korea? This has only been going on there for 15 to 20 years. There's a lot of people alive in Venezuela right now that easily know what it was like before the socialists took control of the country. I mean, it's not like they're living in North Korea where they literally know no different because they've been in charge for that long.
Also, there's an opposition in Venezuela to Maduro, so there is no opposition in North Korea. That's been wiped out a long time ago, if there ever was one to begin with. But in Venezuela, they actually do have an opposition leader who actually got the Nobel Peace Prize. So there's actually people there that oppose Maduro. Now they probably don't have a chance in hell of actually ousting him, but there's a $50 million bounty out there for Maduro to get ousted. So I think the U.S. might actually collect their own reward before it's over with.
Yeah, I think so. And also we have to remember, folks, this army is about as bad, worse off, really, than Saddam's armies were when we invaded Iraq in 2003. And when we invaded Iraq in 2003, we ran into basically no resistance. The entire Iraqi army would literally dissolve before we even got to them, and they would just give up. I have a feeling that this is going to be quite similar in Venezuela, especially if you proceed in any ground action with several weeks of airstrikes. They're probably going to fold literally before the U.S. military could even arrive where the military's at. And on top of that, it's not really like they have a lot to fight for. It's not like Vietnam where they have large groups of nationalists, the socialist nationalists of Ho Chi Minh, and then the capitalist nationalists or the dictatorial nationalists of the South that are wanting to pit each other against themselves and see who can come out on top to rule the Vietnamese people. Venezuela is not in the same boat as that. They don't have that kind of nationalistic drive, or at least that nationalistic fervor that existed in Vietnam to keep that going for a while. These people are looking at the Venezuelan government and looking at the idiot in charge. And one, they're probably not even getting paid enough to really give a damn about the guy. And secondly, they're not getting paid enough to really want to sit around and possibly die to get paid nothing. So these guys are going to give up well before there's even really any heavy resistance to be seen, at least in my opinion. And and some people are going to be saying, well, they said that about Ukraine, but also Ukraine has a lot of nationalistic fervor in it. I mean, it's got so much nationalistic fervor in it that in 2014, some of the groups that popped up to defend Ukraine were so nationalistic they went into being fascist. So, that doesn't exist in Venezuela. It's just not the same sort of an equation here. Not the same formula. Not the same ingredients. You get a different result when you bake this cake. But anyways, moving on out of the Caribbean and the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow, it is time for us to move on over into East Asia, as the president of Taiwan has stated that they must be ready for combat by 2027, as China is preparing to seize the island by force. That's just affirming what we already know. And also, folks, I got to say, it's quite interesting. The president of Taiwan apparently is in my ballpark that an invasion of the island will most likely happen in 2027 at the earliest. So it appears that even credible intelligence that they're being provided leads them to believe that the closest an invasion can occur in is around 2027. Moving on from that and into the Islamic Republic of Iran, there was a huge OPSEC leak today as an Iranian soldier proudly filmed a brand new bunker that they had built. We don't know what it does, and we don't really know where it is, but the fact that this wasn't published through an official Iranian media source leads us to believe this is an OPSEC violation. Also,
he's going right in too. Look how the shabby this looks. Like that door's not even really fit to the corridor, really.
We have blast doors to protect ourselves, but the sides and the top are completely wide open. You can just kind of crawl over the top and get in quite easy. I don't even really know the point of that. Also, where in the world do they buy the gun-safe vault doors for this little blast door here?
I can't tell if it's like a gun vault door or a bank vault door.
That sounded hollow.
It could be like pot steel. Oh, look, he's closing it right back behind him. That's a gentleman there.
So, was he just showing off the doors? What was the point of this?
Damn, they may not be good in military, but damn, do they have some nice doors.
Man, honestly, I think the cartel could build a better tunnel than this.
Oh, they're experts at it, so yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think they could, because this one's pretty rough off. But moving on out of Iran, there was also a significant attack that happened today within northeastern Iraq at the Khormor gas fields. It is unclear who attacked it and why. That's the end of that little clip right there. And moving on from that and up into northwestern Syria, we also get to see an explosion happening here, apparently in an ammo depot. It apparently killed 5 service members of the Syrian interim government, but that's the aftermath of the explosion.
عاد نسبح الوري عاد نسبح الوري يا لطيف.
So that's quite a development. Moving on out of the Syrian interim government and on up into Europe, we also have a lot of news going on up here. And Matthew, you better get that little mobilization poll ready to go, because we're going to be getting into that real quick. Moving into Germany first, though, to give time for that poll to be set up, we were able to see that Friedrich Merz, who is currently the Chancellor of Germany, has stated that Putin must realize he has no chance of winning the war in Ukraine. And I'd have to agree with him. I don't really think there's a way that the Russians can win at this point. I think that we should take the approach here in the West that we will only negotiate with the Russians when all of our conditions are met by the Russians. Basically, unconditional surrender on Russia's end. I think that will be a piece of dignity for the Russians, because at least at that point, they could say they survived. But moving on out of that, we also have been able to hear of some other additional major news that has been coming on out of the region. But before we get on into that, we have been able to hear that U.S. officials allegedly told Japan to lower the volumes on Taiwan after recent escalation. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? What are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so just to go back over this real quick, Japan recently deployed medium-range ballistic missiles to an island right off of Taiwan in the midst of a major diplomatic row with China. China is very upset with Japan, and Japan appears to be basically going blow for blow with the U.S. officials at this point. So what do you think about that? And it looks like 77% said Japan is 100% justified and they should go right ahead with what they're doing, while 13% said Japan should calm down a bit, and 5% said I'm been different. So allegedly, the U.S. officials have told Japan to lower the volume and to chill out because apparently they're getting really scared and they're shaking in their boots about China doing something over Japan deploying missiles to that island 100 kilometers off the Taiwanese coast. So I was saying yesterday, it seems like a pretty bold move for Japan to make that move, and it sounds like the U.S. was not really behind it, which is a huge limb for Japan to go out on, considering that the U.S. apparently is not fully behind this action and that they're taking on a very large force, which is China, if China decides to act against Japan. So I would personally say the posturing is good, but Japan really needs U.S. support behind them on this one because they can't take on China alone and they can't risk being left high and dry if the U.S. decides to walk away from it. So I would say Japan is justified, but they should be very careful, though, because they're kind of getting a little bit wild and loose with China, and China might be forced to act because that act of deploying missiles on that island, that's a huge escalation. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I'm with the 77%. It's 100% justified that what the Japanese are doing, and they should continue. The People's Republic of China openly threatening the state of Japan due to their simple statement in a hypothetical scenario. If China was to invade Taiwan, they would possibly get involved because it would start to violate their national security interests. And the fact that the Chinese have responded by threatening to kill the prime minister and also destroy Japan, that's something that generally puts the ball in Japan's court, that any action from that point forward is largely more so self-defense than trying to provoke the Chinese. Also, the fact that the missiles have been deployed on what is clearly a Japanese island, the island of Yonaguni, and to defend the Senkaku Islands that are also owned by Japan, which the People's Republic of China's Coast Guard has openly and blatantly violated the territorial waters of within recent weeks, will lead me to say that the Japanese are well within their right to be deploying missiles on Yonaguni Island due to the fact that the Chinese are openly provoking them and conducting hostile actions and statements against the Japanese government. So I would say that I would be 100% in support of the Chinese currently, and while the People's Republic of China is something that we generally have to deal with white gloves, while we can deal with Russia with a sledgehammer, and we can also deal with the Iranians the same way, China is a much more fragile situation, but at the same time, the Japanese can't be told that they have to back off even when the Chinese are conducting direct provocations, like sailing armed forces into their territorial waters. We can't really tell the Japanese to back off because any actions precipitating that would be actions of self-defense by the Japanese. So I would generally be with a 78% wholly, and I'd also say that as far as the U.S. position, I wouldn't really go all in publicly on saying that the U.S. is backing that completely, because there could be some significant fallout from that, but I would tell the Japanese that we would quietly support them, and then if it became a serious situation in the future, we would openly and publicly support them at that point, if there was no other way to avoid the situation. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, but I would say that while we have to be quite careful with dealing with the Chinese because of our trade relations with them, at the same time, we don't want to show complete weakness and deference to the Chinese. But moving on from that, and on up into Europa, as we have a large amount of news to cover in Europa. We have been able to hear that the dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, has actually suggested, I'm guessing that he's minorly trolling, that the negotiations for the end of the war in Ukraine should be held in Minsk, in Belarus. Wow, what a neutral location to hold it in. Man, Minsk, in the middle of a dictatorship. That's Russian aligned. Wow. That's crazy. You know, instead
Seems kind of stupid to me. It's like, why would Ukraine want to go to Minsk to go negotiate something when Belarus is literally a puppet state? It's just really stupid right here. Honestly, I think the Lukashenko, whatever his name is, I think he wants to make Minsk meat out of Ukraine. That's my dad joke limit of the day.
Oh, that was a good one, though. But the real locations that this could be held at would be Switzerland, Qatar, or for a non-neutral party that still could be a neutral intermediary here, Turkey. One of those three. Those are really the only acceptable locations, but holding peace talks for the end of the war in Ukraine in Minsk, Kyiv, Moscow, or Washington, D.C. is absolutely unacceptable, or any other cities within those countries. Entirely unacceptable. Really, honestly, there's not a lot of places to go in the world to talk about the end of a war rather than Switzerland, or Turkey, or Qatar. That's basically the only three options we have for now, because Turkey has positioned themselves to be neutral enough, at least to both sides in a sense, that they could be a neutral meeting ground for the two parties. Switzerland is always a neutral meeting ground, and recently the Qataris have positioned themselves to be a major diplomatic negotiating player, and so for that reason, they're also neutral enough, a lot like Switzerland, that the talks could be held there. But nowhere else, really. There's not enough neutral countries out there in the world to just hold it in a place like Minsk, which is absolutely stupid in the first place. But anyways,
It might be better just not to hold them at all because it seems pointless. So they can simply work it out on the front lines. I would say that sounds like the best way to go at this point because Russia doesn't want peace. Putin's saying he's not going to basically compromise whatsoever. So what's the point of meeting together just to get everybody in the same room if they're not going to actually negotiate in good faith? It's pointless.
Yeah, it's absolutely pointless. And then on top of that, we have to tell the Ukrainians and U.S. delegation that they have to go into practically enemy. Well, I don't know for the special envoy, he might be going home. I don't know. But for the Ukrainians, we're literally asking them to go into enemy territory at that point to go talk to the Russians, which is an absolutely stupid proposition. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And I also actually have seen some people talking about the Chinese-Japanese situation, and I've actually seen a longtime viewer disagree with me and say that we're getting kind of backed into a corner with the Chinese, and so we really don't have a lot to really do as a recourse. And I would agree with you on a decent degree to that. But at the same time, though, you have to understand that we can't be too rash in that sort of a situation, because I definitely see where you're coming from, and I would agree we are being backed in a corner by the Chinese, and there really isn't a lot of ground to really cover at this point to move around and position ourselves diplomatically. But at the same time, China is quite a large trade partner of ours. We have a collective trade with them annually of about $560 billion. And so it isn't really a relationship that we can easily dispense of like we would with Russia or Iran and immediately go to hardlining. It's a position that we have to play very carefully, because if we try and mess with the Chinese, we will hurt them a great deal, but we're also going to hurt ourselves a great deal in the meantime. And whenever we hurt ourselves, it's not always in an abstract way where we end up making the United States look like a fool or make us look like a joke on the world stage. With the trade relationships involved, we could end up hurting a lot of Americans who have jobs here in the United States. They could end up losing their jobs because they don't have any goods to sell in their businesses. And for that reason, they can't turn a profit to keep their employees on a payroll, and then they get fired. So there's a lot of fragility going on there, because while that would happen all the same to China, it will also happen here. And we generally want to try and avoid as much damage to the U.S. citizenry as possible on a day-to-day with the decision-making, because sure, it would be great to just shaft the Chinese, to be entirely honest. I would be behind that. But at the same time, we would be hurting a lot of Americans here on the home front. And then that's what really starts to tie my hands when I talk about the analysis side, because it's like, we beat the Chinese, but at what cost? I mean, how many Americans did we end up, doing their detriment in the process of trying to one-up the Chinese? And that's what makes that situation incredibly complicated to deal with. That's also why I would say at the same time, the U.S. has got to work on having U.S. companies move out of China. We have to start eliminating trade with the Chinese as much as we can. Really, anywhere would be a better alternative than China. Vietnam is a great alternative. I know people say that they're communist, and they are. But at the same time, Vietnam, it will never become a country that can threaten us on the world stage. So generally a pretty good place to put our industries. Also, Mexico is a really great place to put our industries. We already have a collective trade with Mexico of $850 billion a year. They're actually our largest trading partner on the planet. And so there isn't really a reason to think that Mexico would ever become a large rival of the United States. And also considering that they have a direct border proximity with us, there really isn't a way for them to do anything hostile to the United States, because that would invoke pretty dire consequences immediately because of their proximity to us. So Mexico is a very good place to put U.S. industries for cheap labor, and also Vietnam is as well. But I would say that we need to see a concerted push by the United States to incentivize U.S. industries to start packing up shop in China and then offshoring in other countries elsewhere that are not BRICS aligned, like India or China, and generally will not pose any strategic threat to the United States in the future. Then that'll make our decision making on the Chinese far easier, because we will not have as much damage and as much fallout, for example, in the complete collapse of trade relations, if we have to take strong actions against the Chinese. But with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of our news in Europa, as we have been able to hear that a little bit of news has come out of France today. For one, France has detained 4 linked Russian suspects over alleged spying for a foreign power. One is accused of trying to obtain sensitive info from a French corporate executive, prosecutors say. 2 of the suspects are Russian nationals. Well, sounds like a little spy ring might have been busted in Paris today. Meanwhile, we also heard that the French are now going to be starting a pretty much a mobilization in a sense. Visegrad 24 kind of surmised this in a bit of an incorrect way. It's not a compulsory military service. France has actually deemed compulsory military service to be illegal in 1996. What the French are doing is that they're starting mobilization initiatives that start incentivizing French citizens in joining the French armed forces, or at least being trained in the reserves. This will give France a much larger amount of manpower to work with well on into the future, especially in the outbreak of a major war, because a lot of citizens will already be medically cleared for service. A lot of them will also already be militarily trained within a special role or job to fill within the military, and they will also have a larger standing army to work with in general. So that's generally what we understand the ongoing mobilization prerogative or initiative is inside of France at the moment. It's not compulsory military service, much like the Germans are pretty much restarting at this point with the conscription or pretty much their version of the selective service. This is more so a mobilization initiative, and it's volunteer entirely. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, and also clarify a bit of misconceptions that have been made today about that mobilization initiative within France. And moving on out of that, it's now time for us to finally get on, folks, into the war in Ukraine, which has had a lot of news today. Before we get into that, though, one bonus piece of news. The Moldovans took the drone that crashed into their territory last night, and they wheeled it right in front of the Russian embassy and placed it right at the front door.
Oh, that's baller. That's honestly crazy. That's a wild move right there. That literally is the exact one. It's got the Z spray painted on the back of it. So yes, the exact one they found on the rooftop. That's crazy. Like the Moldovan officials wheeled it up to there.
Yeah, right up to the front door.
That is crazy. That's ballsy too. I wonder what the Russians said about that.
Man, honestly, I don't know what they said actually, but that's actually pretty baller. And I'm not gonna lie, that was actually pretty cool. They were like, "What is this?" Like, bro, they just throw it right out the front door. What is this? But moving on out of Moldova, it's now time to get on into Ukraine, because they were not playing around today in Ukraine at all. The Ukrainians conducted some longer range strikes into the Russian rear lines near to the front, including at Nova Idar, where a 110 kilovolt substation was hit, creating a blackout within the local area.
Еще один.
Oh, and I can hear another.
Отойди от окна. Бля, хоть боком не вылетели.
Awfully quiet out there. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah, I wonder. Oh, another hit.
Oh my god.
Hey, a second one.
Oh my god. Actually hit the soundboard.
Man, it was honestly perfectly timed, though, honestly. Man,
that sound, like, also, by the way, I got my headphones back finally. My old headphones actually broke, so I had to get some new ones. So tonight's my first night back with headphones. That was loud as hell. I literally reached down, smacked the mouse, and hit the soundboard right at the right time. That was perfect.
Man, honestly, man. And moving on from that, we also saw a strike happening in Luhansk. Is what actually that's a duplicate clip. Sorry, everyone. We actually geolocated that later to Nova Idar, and apparently I left the one in Luhansk because it was in the Luhansk Oblast and I hadn't found exactly where yet. And then I found it was in Nova Idar, and then I moved it there and didn't delete the old marker. So moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we did get to see today a little Russian grad being destroyed. Oh, we're gonna have to mute the Inspector Gadget music, but we can see the grad firing right there. And the Ukrainians are about to rinse this thing, and not with water. They ain't giving it a car wash. This grad's
oh look, I know that one on the battlefield is not that clean though. Like it's got to be nastier.
Oh, it's very dirty. Oh my god! Oh my god, dude!
It turned into splatter.
It turned into a cartoon splatter. Like, oh my god.
It was like, you know when you like splat a bug or something like that? It turned into that on the ground.
I've never seen a grad literally vaporize into a splatter on the ground. I've never seen that before. That's new, actually.
It's like a roach.
Man, Papa Roach. Man, but moving on from that, we also got the Russian casualty report for the past 24 hours. And oh my goodness, it's been a good time for Bobcats.
Oh, we got one more Bobcat. Now, tomorrow on Thanksgiving, they better give thanks by getting a few extra, just a couple extra might do the trick right there. Just a little bit of stuff. But one Bobcat, that's fantastic right there. 4,007. That's crazy work. But tell us more.
Man, and Miss Disa, keeper of the record, stated 743 drones is the highest daily loss of the war. And it actually is. It's quite a large amount. Russia is not interested in ending the war or peace negotiations. That's real talk right there, Miss Disha. I appreciate you for throwing that in again because we were talking about that earlier tonight, and I'm absolutely agreeing with that 100%. And Slava Ukraini and Rom Slava. And to speak about how the Ukrainians laid to waste the Russian army today, 980 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours. I guess you could say, they turned into the Turkey. Meanwhile, one APC was destroyed along with 124 supply trucks, 4 tanks, 44 artillery pieces, 743 drones, 14 cruise missiles, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, 1 special equipment, and a bobcat in a pear tree. Or actually works more so with a partridge in a pear tree, but sometimes pear trees grow bobcat skid steers. You get what you get. But anyways, moving on from the casualty report and on into the rest of our front lines for the day. We got to see some combat footage out of the Syberansky forest. The Ukrainians are showing thanks, and they're quite grateful because the Ukrainian drone forces are continuing to bring in the harvest. Take a look at this. They're following down that ATV right there. One guy hopped off, and the other guy, he wasn't so lucky. He ended up turning into the cranberry sauce. Meanwhile, this guy's trying to hide behind the tree. That's like some people whenever they see their extended family on the Thanksgiving holidays. Meanwhile, this guy is taking a run through the woods, something that some very avid physical exercise folks get involved in right there. Fitness freaks is what they call them. We see some sack guys right there. And
look, he's on a dirt bike.
Oh, he was going off-road.
Oh. That was a dirty bike.
It's always good to see the Russians getting some fresh air, They're usually, all huddled up in a little bunker somewhere. And we see this guy, he's just kind of chilling. And we can also see further on in the clip the Signum Unit's emblem. Pretty impressive stuff right there. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Ukrainian SOF taking out a Russian recon group. Now take a look at this right here. Nice M4, by the way.
Turn it down. The bass is too loud.
The bass is too loud. Man, honestly, it kind of is. This guy is now playing Flappy Birds on his phone in the middle of the firefight. He's got to take a 5-minute break. It's a union requirement.
Гасіть всім, що можна, і дай по часам, на яку годину.
Excuse me, soldier. Makarov is 2 clicks ahead.
Keep an eye on it, soldier, or whatever the stupid Call of Duty lines are, get back in the fight, soldier. Like, you just took 5 bullets to the chest, but we gave you a shot of epinephrine, and you're gonna be right to stay. But anyways.
We have to keep moving. The enemy's on our ass. I'm not talking about Diddy.
Ain't nothing like a Diddy party, man. Like, and it turned out he was right. Oh. Get behind cover. Whoa, they were in a grenade.
Oh, my.
There goes another grenade. Call that an early Christmas present. Stocking stuffer, even.
Man, they're getting stuffed. I tell you what, like a damn turkey out here.
Dude, I was about to say, they're throwing in grenades like stuffing in a turkey. Man, I tell you. We can also hear the demon here.
The devil in the background, jeez.
Man, it's like, yo, what the hell? Man, there goes another grenade. You can't ever use enough grenades. You now hear them yelling for the guys to surrender inside if they know what's good for them. And that's
Oh, they
the.
have papers.
I don't know why they blurred them out, but these are the passports of some of the folks who got greased up in that bunker. We now see them taking the one survivor out of the three out of the bunker. The other two guys died in there. But off they go, and it appears that the Special Forces did take out that recon group quite easily. Moving on down the line and towards Konstantinivka, Ukrainian drone actions persisted in this area thanks to the 28th Mechanized Brigades and its endless actions to stop Russian advances and attacks on the Ukrainian front with their drone forces. That sounded like
very corporate.
Dude, that sounded like a commercial read-off. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like that was all unscripted, folks. I just came up with that on the spot, and it sounded like the most pre-scripted thing you could imagine. Well, there goes
You have to
one.
sound like a police officer. You have to sound like a police officer and say, here we have the two-wheeled motor vehicle combusting and rolling down the asphalt. I observed it with my two eyeballs rolling down the pavement. A man seemed to be scraping the asphalt as he slid down the pavement.
Man, honestly, man, here's how you actually talk as a police. I confronted the individual, the alleged suspect, who was involved in driving the motorbike. It appeared that the motorbike was a Kawasaki 420cc, and it appeared that the individual may have been intoxicated due to slurred speech and erratic movement of the eyeballs. I then made contact with the individual and asked him for his driver's license and all and identification, and that is when he started to conduct an felony eluding of police officers by flooring the vehicle down the street. I then entered my patrol car and started to proceed at high speed to follow the suspect and attempt a pit maneuver at a dangerous speed, which was given approval by the sergeant, yada yada, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. And then the whole story goes that way. It completely removes the excitement from the stories, you know. But it's how they file police reports, so that's how they end up talking. But anyways, moving on down into Pokrovsk, we also get to see a little bit of a mix of destroyed equipment.
The Anna. I don't know what is that.
I don't really know. It's in Christmas colors, though. It's very festive. And
That's
overturned
Santa Claus or Krampus. Krampus Claus or whatever that thing is that the Russians are scared of. Christmas Claus or something like that.
You better not pout. You better not cry. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. The Ukrainian drone will hear you and fly in. Man, like it's.
What is it, Cramping? What's the thing that you're scared of on Christmas?
Blood's scared of Charlie horse coming down the chimney and getting them on Christmas. It's Krampus.
Krampus. Okay, is that that's the whole like? We got to see a picture of that thing. Can we get a picture of them? Can we see a picture?
Pull it up, Jamie. Pull it up. Pull it up. Pull it up, Jamie. We got to get Krampus here. Oh, dude, there's like a million. Let me make sure that let's see here. Is there any way that I can? Let's see here. Size, color, usage rights, type, anytime, advanced search. I want to just make sure there's nothing that I'm not seeing on this page because it's quite erratic, but
erratic.
Yeah, well, you know, the images are quite bizarre. I'm just trying to make sure there's nothing too too non-PG to show. But this is the Krampus creature.
Oh shit.
Bro,
that's their Santa? That ain't Santa, that's the devil.
Man, that ain't Santa. That's never been Santa.
What the hell?
Dude,
bro, what is this? Why is his tongue out like that? And why is he holding on to children?
So Krampus is basically what happens if you're naughty. You don't get coal, at least in Germany. This thing comes and grabs you and kills you, basically. It drags you off into, basically hell, and then it tortures you and kills you. And it's specifically for kids. So it's basically like psychological torture on the kids to make them behave. Otherwise, this thing's going to get you on Christmas and drag you to hell.
Dang, you had to be a sick bastard to come up with this. I've never seen it quite like this. This is wild to think this is mainstream.
Dude, German fairy tales, man, are not for the faint of heart, man. I mean, even all the ones that even Disney worked off of, even the British ones, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, all those stories, the real fairy tales, are absolutely nuts. I mean, they are not at all PG for kids. I mean, they are quite messed up. But they were children's stories, crazily enough. But the Germans historically, man, as a culture, have been really big into psychological torture. They're quite good at it, and they started off on the kids. Historically, they've always given these terrible, scary stories to their kids.
Yeah, they did some other things too that weren't quite that great either. But that was a long time ago. You have to, it was a long time ago.
One time, folks, we were in Germany. I went up to the tour guide and I said, "Hey, this is like a really interesting like tour and everything." But I was looking through your brochure here, the history of the city of Munich, and from 1939 to 1945, there's nothing on here. And the German tour guide went, "We are on holiday. We are on lunch, anyways." And then moved on.
Don't mention Savoy.
Man, don't mention Sabah. But anyways, moving on into our next clip in Pokrovsk, we also got to see the Ukrainians dropping some GBU-62s on the Russians here near a small town of Ubachny. Oh, and there it goes. There it was. A very nice hit. Very nice.
He's been having Deutschen votes.
Man, that's real.
Man, I said something along the lines of I have Germany and gibberish behind it.
Man, you said German volts like electricity.
Yeah, the German power facilities, the electricity facilities.
Dude, or you can take that goofy translated to English speech that some people who want to act like they're smart go, "He has a point, when he said, I asked him to surrender 5 times." And then if you listen to the clip, it's basically the Russian position that if you don't give up on them, then they can bomb you and they're justified. Like, I was like, that's a stupid one. Like, people who try and say that speech clip that was translated to English at a point, I'm like, are these people stupid? Do they just want to sound like they're philosophical? It has no point. But anyways, moving on down to Velika Novosilka, we also got to see the 413th slamming the Russians down here. They got some cool intros in Ukraine these days, folks. They work on those. Oh, and here it goes.
Someone said, the Volkswagen, yeah. The Volkswagen. Yes.
Man. And they got that ocean.
Oh, look, a duck. They got that duck. They got the duck. Look at them. They got that. Wait a minute.
Folks, that song, Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you sleep and he knows when you're awake. Isn't that just the NSA?
Well, it could be the NSA, maybe. It could be Home Invader. It could be Santa trying to deliver presents, but I'm always sus about an old man climbing down the chimney at midnight. I'm just saying.
Also, why in the world does he have a thing with socks? Sounds like a really Weinstein sort of a thing.
He might have a future in Hollywood if it doesn't work out in Antarctica.
Dude, he said, "Yes, little boys and girls, put your socks up over the fireplace. Yeah. It's like, nah, man, I think I'm good. I think we're not going to do the stockings, you whack-ass freak." Like, honestly, man, it's like, why in the world does he got a thing with the stockings of all stuff that you can put over the fireplace? It's got to be something to do with feet. Like, this guy was well ahead of his time, like he was into this shit before anyone else was in Hollywood. He was like a trendsetter basically for those folks. But anyways,
thank God food doesn't land, or thank God the Santa Claus doesn't land in the hood coming in the house is talking about ho ho ho. What the hell did you say? Santa ain't making it out. Poor Santa, he shouldn't have showed up in O Block.
No, dude, I actually heard that they had a song that went a lot like Santa Claus is Coming to Town in China. And when they translate it to English, it says, "You better watch out. You better not pout. You better not cry. I'm telling you why. Xi Jinping is coming to town." And then it goes through the, secret police and the social credit score and all those fun things. But I've heard that the Chinese, they don't have Christmas, and they really aren't into the Christmas spirit, but they sure as hell are into being careful about people watching them and not pouting and crying, because that social credit score will drop down to 5 million negative points. But moving on into Kherson, we also get to see that the Russians have been using so many fiber optic drones, it looks like there are large spiders in the trees from just how many fiber optic cables are hanging around up there. I guess you could say they're hanging in there. But still very wild to see that many, for that matter. It's like that over a lot of Ukraine these days. But with that, it's now time for us to move on out of Kherson and on up into Kyiv to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this very day of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech.
Шановні українці,
Speech! Huh? That speech? Hello?
A speech!
Hey, there we go! Peach!
українки, провів сьогодні ставку, кілька ключових напрямків розмови. Перше ППО та все, що необхідне для щоденного збиття російських ракет та збиття дронів, фінансування перехоплювачів, обсяг виробництва, домовленості з нашими партнерами, по всьому регулярний контроль Міністерства оборони та військового командування. І треба нарощувати виробництво і нарощувати максимально окрема протиповітряна оборона малого та середнього радіусу дії. Це те, що потрібно і для фронту, і для захисту об'єктів енергетики. Оновили потреби, і по цьому буде збільшувати виробництво наше вітчизняне українське виробництво. Це гарантія захисту. Українці не мають залежати від того, чи вдається щось знайти на світовому ринку, чи на складах партнерів. Завдання по виробництву мають бути виконані вчасно, персональна відповідальність за це на всіх рівнях. Виконуємо також і запити бригад. Після моєї поїздки у фронтові райони один із таких запитів – справедливий розподіл особового складу між бригадами, поповнення бригад людьми має бути переглянуто, безумовно. Про це говорять майже в кожній бойовій бригаді. Зараз є і доручення Ставки все це опрацювати начальнику Генштабу Андрію Гнатову разом з Павлом Палісою, заступником керівника Офісу президента та дуже досвідченому військовому. Найближчим часом мають бути підготовлені для мене проекти рішення. Звісно, детальні доповіді по ситуації на фронті були по ключових напрямках: Куп'янськ, Покровськ, Гуляйполе. Важливо, що українські воїни продовжують знищувати окупанта, захищають позиції та виконують бойові завдання. І саме це основа нашої можливості вести перемовини в інтересах України. Росіяни всюди у світі розносять, що Україна начебто не може захищатися. Вони кажуть, що українські воїни не можуть захищатися. Щоденний бойовий результат української армії, щоденний результат наших спеціальних служб, наших діпстрайків – це доказ, що Україна може захищати свої інтереси. І зараз кожен знищений російський окупант, кожне поповнення нашого обмінного фонду для України, кожен російський штурм, який українці зупинили, кожна знищена російська одиниця техніки, і кожен наш діпстрайк – це аргументи, що з Україною варто бути, Україні варто допомагати. І що тиснути заради миру треба не на Україну, а на Росію. Єдину причину, чому війна затягується. Я хочу подякувати всім нашим воїнам, які саме так відчувають ситуацію, і кожному, хто зараз, як і завжди, допомагає нашій армії, допомагає нашій державі. Я хочу відзначити за підсумками боїв цими днями на Куп'янському напрямку воїнів 127-ї важкої механізованої бригади та 475-го окремого штурмового полку. Дякую вам, воїни, за бої на Донеччині, 82-га і 95-та десантно-штурмові бригади, 25-та повітряна десантна бригада, 25-й окремий штурмовий батальйон, 1-й штурмовий полк, 132-й окремий розвідувальний батальйон, 425-й окремий штурмовий полк. Дякую вам. Запорізька область, воїни 5-ї та 92-ї штурмових бригад, підрозділи 1-го, 33-го, 225-го окремих штурмових полків. Дякую. Сумщина, підрозділи 225-го окремого штурмового полку та 71-ї єгерської бригади. Дякую. Ще одне. Вже почались виплати за програмою зимової підтримки і тим, хто оформив заявку в дії, також через Укрпошту. Вже почались виплати, зокрема, і в прифронтових регіонах, у прикордонних регіонах з Росією. І тільки у таких громадах є вже більш ніж 133 тисячі заявок через Укрпошту. Загалом, через мережу Укрпошти ми маємо 550 тисяч заявок. Кількість в дії майже 11 мільйонів заявок. Важливо оформити заявку саме в цьому році до Різдва. Використати можна буде і в наступному році на комуналку, на визначені інші потреби і, звичайно, на підтримку нашої армії через донати волонтерам. Кожен прояв підтримки має значення. Я дякую всім, хто з Україною. Слава Україні!
And Ram
Ram
Slava.
Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1372 of the news from around the world. And that wraps up our news on the day before Thanksgiving, the 26th of November of 2025. And folks, I gotta ask y'all, what are y'all thankful for? Y'all thankful for food? Y'all thankful for family? Are y'all thankful for the beefs that are going to be created in your family tomorrow because someone's going to bring up religion and politics? What are y'all thankful for? What are y'all thankful for? Let us know in the chat. I'm quite interested to know what y'all are actually thankful for out there here in the United States and around the world. Although our allies don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I invite them to join us and talking about what they are thankful for at this time of the year, or generally as a whole. But anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk about anything and everything, except for religion, politics, climate change, and whether the A-10 is relevant in minor warfare or not. Rules that people ought to follow with their family tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. If y'all follow those 4 rules, I can promise y'all it's going to go swimmingly. And if everyone follows those rules in your family, oh, there's going to be absolutely no drama at all. It's going to be smooth and seamless. No issues at all. A single one. Except for others that could pop up. But with that in mind, we are going to be getting on into them questions. Matthew, what do we got?
So tomorrow, on Thursday, November the 27th, it is Thanksgiving. And I must say, sir, I'm so glad it's Thanksgiving. I have a lot to be thankful for. I said, sir, I have to be thankful for the fact that I'm so smart. I have to be thankful for that. And also, I have to be very thankful for the fact that I'm always right. And I also have to be very thankful for the fact that nobody's better than me. I gotta say, nobody's better. I've never heard of anybody that says they're better. I've said, sir, don't tell me that. I don't like to hear it. We're not trying to hear that. I said, go away with it. Go away. But anyways, jumping into our first. Yo, go ahead.
Wait a minute. You just can't move on like that. Quiet, piggy.
Hey,
man. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh, man, I just interrupted the president. He called me piggy. Oh, man. I actually didn't even interrupt him. I just asked him a question. He called me piggy. Oh, man. I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. But anyways, I gotta be honest with y'all. Thanksgiving is a great time of year because one thing I'm thankful for is me. There's nothing better than being me. I gotta tell you. I gotta be honest with y'all. Me and my family, we were gathering around for Thanksgiving, and one thing that they said is, look at the list of food, and I almost had a panic attack. Lists! What the hell said? Get rid of that. We have a itinerary of food. We have a selection of food, but we do not have a list of food. That's not a real thing. Not a real thing at all. But another thing that I have to say is that I hope a lot of people have been able to afford their Thanksgiving turkeys this year. The economy's never been better. Turkeys are only costing a minimum of $50 a pound. Really cheap, honestly, if you look at it in the pound-to-pound level. Not that bad. But another thing I gotta say is that we've really been laying on the gravy in foreign policy. Oh, buddy, it's been great. Huge, honestly. Some people have said, biggest it's ever been, the greatest it's ever been. We have Witkoff giving gravy and turkey to the Russians. He said, here you go, here's how to game the system. Here you go, have a free peace. Be thankful for peace in Ukraine, where you pretty much win. Great sort of a solution, honestly. Really like that. And in the meantime, we gave the Ukrainians crow for Thanksgiving. Not a traditional meal, but they're still going to enjoy it nonetheless. Everybody loves eating crow. But another thing that I also
Eating crow. They said, sir, the turkeys are flying off the shelf, sir. They're taking them off the shelf faster than they can make them. They said, sir, the turkeys. I said, slow the turkeys down. I said, we can't have those turkeys flying off the shelf like this. And then he said, there was a buddy of his. He said he was having something called a roast kid for Thanksgiving. It turns out it's roast goat meat. I said, I thought he was having something else, but there's some nasty things, I'm telling you. It's a roast kid. They call it culinary. They say old-fashioned word, culinary. They used to make it in the kitchen. But
and I also got to add, there's always a lot of controversies when people's families get together. What did Jenny do? What did Johnny do? But the controversies in my family, there's something else. People are asking if I'm an equestrian or if I'm something else. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but people are asking which one of the two, and I'm honestly not wanting to to answer that one. That one's a little sensitive, but I do have to say I have a very soft spot for a former president, really nice guy, too nice, honestly. You know, I used to go and have long romps in the woods with him, but outside of that, I gotta be honest with you, some people are talking about all sorts of crazy stuff to be entirely honest with you. Like, what in the world are we supposed to buy for Christmas? I have no money. Well, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get a job. What am I supposed to do about it? But anyways. With that, folks, I gotta say, it's time for us to move on into the questions. Hope y'all had a good laugh out of that. We'll probably do 9 million other voices tonight because it's the day before Thanksgiving. It's the holiday season, and we're gonna get into it. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping right back into our super chat questions here, we did have a $50 super chat from Pliam, and thank you very much, Pliam, for that $50 support and also helping to keep the channel going. And he said, "Happy Thanksgiving, Enforcers."
Hey, and happy Thanksgiving to you. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And I gotta thank you incredibly once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to have a happy Thanksgiving because we would be under a bridge and starving and cold. And it's cold under those bridges this time of year. I think people die around here in like the winter if they're outside. Like, I think they die from exposure. So you can't be outside around here. I mean, that's really humanitarian sort of a thing to support the channel these days. I'm just playing. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support from Little Bear. And thank you very much, Little Bear, as well, for that support right there. And also persevering through the YouTube glitches to send in that super chat. And Little Bear said, "For the Long John Fund and turkey for tomorrow."
The Long John Fund? What's a Long John? Is that like Long John Silver's? Ah, I get it. It's like fish.
Long John Silver's. They said he made a good fish. They said he made the best fish. They said, "Sir, put that fish on the grill and let it cook." They said, "Let him cook." Old-fashioned word. The kids are using it. They said, "Let him cook." It turns out you shouldn't let certain people cook. Some people can't cook. They said, sir, get that man away from the grill. Get that bastard off the grill. He can't cook."
I gotta be honest with you. I consider myself to be a pretty affluent person in this economy. And whenever I take my girl out on a date, I take her to Long John Silver's, real fine dining. Like, in this economy, that's like a $50 meal right there. Not that bad. I always tell them, get me the fried fish sticks and also the Baba Special. They call it the Baba Gum Special. I gotta say, I absolutely love it so much that I'm blowing money on Baba, I gotta tell you. But beyond that, it's an absolutely great dish to get. You gotta love it. And Long John Silver's for Thanksgiving. Who could ever ask for better? Like a turkey? Forget a turkey. Forget a hog. We don't call them hogs around here. We call them piggies. And we also call the journalists that. But outside of that, it's an absolutely great time, wonderful time. You gotta love Thanksgiving. It's a great time. And someone said, I thought this channel wasn't political. Well, to fake news people like you, it is. But to real people, we do this all the time. If you can't handle it, you can't handle the heat. This is what the people wanted. It's what they voted for. And it's what they're getting. It's voice impersonations, back to back to back, all night long. But still, a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to James Hughes, who puts in a 50 as well. And a huge shout out to James for that $50 support and helping to keep the channel running as well. And he said, "Happy Thanksgivings, Enforcers. And please take a question from the chat."
Hey, and thank you so much for wishing us a happy Thanksgiving. We wish all y'all a happy Thanksgiving as well. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor of a happy Thanksgiving. And so what do we got, Matthew?
So this one goes to Jack Ray, who said, "Has anyone spotted Lavrov yet?" I'll be honest, Jack. I haven't seen Lavrov in the wild recently. I'm not sure where Lavrov has gone. We had heard rumors that he was falling out of favor with Putin, and then the Russians came out and said, "Oh, that's all a bunch of bull hockey. It's fake. Lavrov's in perfect shape, and Putin still loves him." But it seems like Lavrov has suddenly disappeared, and he seems to have gone maybe on vacation. I'm not really sure. Where he went, but that's never a good sign when you're in Russia. But Enforcer, what say you?
He's sleeping with the fishes. But to be honest, we don't know what happened to Lavrov. He's disappeared. And notice that it was the deputy foreign minister that made the official statement today about rejecting pretty much all the peace deals. It wasn't Lavrov himself. So I'm assuming that Lavrov really is falling out of favor. They're just trying to downplay it and generally really make that a minor ordeal so that way that doesn't really show that they pretty much delete anyone from the Russian government that isn't doing exactly what Putin wants, how he wants it. So, that's generally what I'd assume, at least with what's happened with Lavrov. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robert Betancourt. And Robert puts in two $50 supports back to back. And a huge shout out to Robert for the combined $100 support and helping to keep the channel running big league. And Robert said, why not disabled sailing on the Salton Sea? See Hansa sailing. And he said also, yes, I was in Operation Garden Plot 1992, and we had ammo, and it got used. Our Arsenault Hall came down to the Century Plaza from the hotel.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. That's really interesting. I got to thank you for the support and sharing that story. And also, the Salton Sea, he says, and sailing on it. Did he say sail on the Salton Sea?
He said, why not disabled sailing on the Salton Sea? See Hansa sailing.
Hansa sailing. Let me say it like that. Oh, let's see here. Oh, these. I always thought these were neat.
Those are kind of neat. I actually like those.
Yeah, I didn't know they were called Hansa sailboats. I just called them small sailboats. But that's really cool. Honestly, I wouldn't do that on the Salton Sea, though, because if I remember, the Salton Sea is actually toxic, if I'm not mistaken now. Let me check that. Is the Salton Sea toxic? Oh, yeah. Due to the pesticides, agricultural runoff, and the salt. And the declining water levels. So basically, this is like a toxic hellhole down here. I remembered that because I remember at some point I was looking into the Salton Sea, and they were like, "Why is it a toxic hellhole?" And it's very interesting, actually. This actually, by the way, is a place in GTA 5. Matthew can tell you all that because they pretty much modeled the Salton Sea area right in front of Mount Chiliad, which is supposed to be the mountains around Los Angeles, or at least some of the larger ones that are in Southern California. So kind of cool with that they modeled that into the game. But still, I wouldn't go sailing on the Salton Sea. I generally avoid the place because I just haven't ever heard good things about the Salton Sea. It's kind of like avoiding the Great Salt Lake, to be entirely honest, because the Great Salt Lake, apparently if you get to it, it apparently smells because of all the dead brine or the brine shrimp.
I didn't smell anything near it, honestly.
How close did you get to it?
Like right there on the Highway 80 or Interstate 80.
Interstate 80.
Yeah, I literally had the windows down and everything. I didn't smell anything.
Maybe the wind wasn't blowing your direction, maybe.
Must have been the wind.
Must have been the wind. Dude, turn into a GTA NPC. What's that? Must have been the wind. Does the Salt Lake smell? Yeah, see.
It can have a smell. It can, but it doesn't mean it shall.
Let's see.
Oh, this lake's like dead, yo.
So apparently, when the winds blow really strong, it churns up the cauldron that is the Salt Lake, and all the nasty shit that was rotting at the bottom kind of gets its minute at the top, and it reeks, and it happens about 2 to 3 times a year. It's been, apparently, the Great Salt Lake has been dubbed Lake Stinky. Yeah, apparently it does reek sometimes around there. Mostly because of the decomposing stuff and the dead brine shrimp in it and everything. And also the north side of the Salt Lake was actually like toxic shocked, I believe, back in the 90s. And I don't think anything's alive up there anymore. I think that's literally like a toxic hell pit. And the only thing stopping the whole Salt Lake from turning into what the north part of it is this giant railway berm that pretty much divides the lake now. So, you know, yeah, that's a little interesting fact. I don't think Utah Lake has that issue. Let me type that in. Does Utah Lake smell? Huh. So apparently they can just all smell.
I heard that you can't really go get in Utah Lake. I heard it's toxic.
Really?
That's why I was reading because honestly I was trying to look at kayaking. I was like, yeah, I saw someone kayaking in a lake around here the other day, and I was like, that looks pretty interesting right there. I was like, I wonder if you can go kayaking in that. So I pulled it up and I saw a couple people, at least, you know, anecdotally, they were claiming that it was toxic or something. I'm not sure if it really is or not, but that's what they were saying. Not that,
Oh,
kayaking, you're supposed to stay in the boat. You're not supposed to like jump out of the kayak into the water. But I mean,
in 1948, a study showed Utah Lake was being seriously polluted. By 1954, many cities had constructed sewage treatment plants, but Provo's was still under construction. Raw sewage was still getting into the lake by 1967. That's a long time ago. But let's see, are responsible for the management.
Also, Jack Ray said, "Is everything toxic around there?" Well,
Basically.
not everything, but I mean, it was like a lot of mining around here, so that's mainly the main pollutant is a lot of mining byproducts. It sounds like tailing piles. They try to clean stuff up, but of course, there's always a little bit of remnants of these toxic minerals and things that are left behind, even though they've tried to clean it up. So there's a lot of stuff around here that has a risk to it, but it's not like it's a toxic hell pit or something like that. It's just like you just got to be a little bit more cautious around certain areas.
Yeah, apparently the Utah Lake area also isn't really that well off. I always imagined though between the two, Utah Lake would be better off. Apparently not. Usually large bodies of water near a major city are never well off. Look at New York City. Look at the Hudson River. Like people who fall in the Hudson River, I think they have to get like toxicology treatments and stuff and like tests after they fall in, or into the East River, which is also about as bad off. That's what I've heard at least. I don't know if that's true to this day. But generally, any major body of water around a major city is usually almost pretty much toxic. It's very rare for it not to be the case. But honestly, kind of a crazy deal with the salt lakes around here, Utah Lake and the Great Salt Lake, that they're both kind of just basically toxic and can sometimes reek. But in short, there's been a lot of activity around this area. There's a lot of mining activity, and it usually creates pollutants. And if you think that sounds bad, which it honestly isn't really the greatest thing, like when you think about it, then that's why the United States has very stringent EPA standards, so that way everyone isn't living on an industrial tailings pile that's toxic and then is covered with like 6 inches of topsoil. I hope that reminds everyone why the EPA and environmental regulations are important. Because if you don't like the sound of living on top of a toxic industrial mining pit that's now been covered over with a little bit of soil, that's why we have the EPA, is to generally stop things like that from happening into the future in any major or harmful way. But with that,
Also they test those chemical weapons over the mountains, but it's over the mountains though. Like you're not going to get any VX or something like that over here in Salt Lake because they keep that over there in the base.
yeah, I mean, and also, Pirate Dive Bar said there was so much pollution in the Detroit River decades ago, and inlet going into the industrial area caught fire. That was actually wildly common back then. It wasn't just a Detroit thing. That was a Boston thing, a New York City thing. That happened a lot all over. And it's really crazy when you look back at the pollution that existed back then, because people these days, we talk about pollution in America in a very more abstract sense, like carbon dioxide emissions and sulfur oxide and things that are emitted, but they're not extremely visible. Like you don't really see them too well. But back then, industrial smog and also pollutants in the rivers was something that was clearly visible. Pollution back then was a visible issue that you could actually physically see. Like, let me go pull up New York City smog in the 1950s. Let me show you all an average day in the New York City skyline back then. That's what it looks like. And that's not fog, that is smog. That's industrial output, industrial pollutants and such, scouring the whole city. It's basically like living in a giant cloud of toxic dust. That's how bad it could get sometimes.
That's terrible there. That's like smoking cigs.
Yeah, so major cities like Boston and New York and others throughout the country back then, they started to bring in anti-pollution laws, emissions laws, and stuff like that in the municipal level to deal with the kind of pollutants and smog that you would see. And over the decades, that became a federal issue, and now it's generally been addressed across the board in most places, except for generally two, or not really two, but a couple of cities. One of them that's the worst still is LA, and there's really no way to fix LA because it's surrounded by a humongous mountain range, so it basically encapsulates all of their industrial emissions, their pollution basically within that mountain range bowl. And the only way that pollution ever dissipates is when the wind blows the pollution out towards the Channel Islands or pretty much out into the Pacific. That's really the only time that will start to dissipate. In Salt Lake City, it's quite similar. Pollution can build up here, and I've seen it build up twice since we've been here in the single month we've been here. And it will build up, and the only thing that gets rid of it is a strong wind overnight or rains. Those are the only two things that will get rid of the pollution. But it's a really interesting thing because a lot of people don't really think about how pollution affects folks or what it's like to live in it, because most people in America that are alive right now, unless if you're a boomer or someone else around that age, a lot of people don't really remember pollution because it hasn't been an issue through most people's lifetime like it was back then. So, a little bit of an interesting sort of a conversational piece, because like a lot of people just don't know about this stuff. A lot of people don't know about the pollution, the crime, how life was like back then. I mean, hell, even life in the 1930s was a totally different animal to what it even is today. And a lot of people look back at times like that and they go, "Oh, it was a great time, a simpler time." And I can tell y'all, being a history major and having studied a lot of U.S. history on what life was like up until today, I can tell y'all I would want to live in no other historical period than right now. Like, I'm not lying. Like, that sounds crazy because a lot of people are like, "What, with all the issues today?" Yeah, even with all the issues today, we're still way better off than anyone else who's ever lived in America before us. We're on the up and up, and hopefully we can continue to work and strive to continue to be on the up and up for the next generations after ours. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Jay Bagwell, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Jay, for that support as well, and being a long-time in-person friend of the channel. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Jay said, "Happy Thanksgiving, guys." And we have a lot to be thankful for, including this channel. And also, pecans are used for pies. Pecans are for truck drivers.
I like that one, J Bagel. That's a pretty good one. And thank you so much for the support. And a happy Thanksgiving to you and the family down there. I hope y'all are doing well. And I hope that y'all have a great Thanksgiving as well. And I got to say, we got a lot to be thankful for. A lot of y'all, like yourself, J Bagel, say that y'all are thankful for the channel. I say that we are thankful for all of y'all watching this channel. And we're also thankful to be alive another year. Because you never know. One day, it might be your day. It might be my day, really. But beyond that, I got to thank you massively so much once again for support and how the channel to keep on running. And also, on top of that, I gotta say, the pecan one, I like that one. That was a pretty good one. Pecan pie, there's no other way to say pecan rather than pecan. Like, if you say pecan, that is something for 18-wheeler truck drivers right there, is the pecan.
I don't think I've ever said pecans, like pecans. I don't think I've ever said that in my life. I've never really heard anybody that says pecans in real life. I've never heard anybody say that.
I've never heard anyone say it that way either. I wonder if people say it like that around here in Utah. Pecans.
I think they say it like that up north.
I think it's those damn Yankees like that say pecan. Let's see what is the pecan tree range map. Let's see where they're from. Just what I thought. Those Yankees don't know how to say it because they don't grow up there.
Well, how come it doesn't show they're growing in Alabama when they're all over the place?
I don't really know. I mean, we had like 1 million of them here in Alabama. I mean, there was like one most of the time all over the place. You go up and be like, "Oh, look, a pecan tree, crazy." I guess this is the natural distribution map of them. So this is where they're naturally occurring. But I guess the rest of them were introduced by people who planted them, and then they started to populate elsewhere.
Yeah, I remember the big deal back in Alabama. I remember specifically back in our hometown of Wetumpka, way out in the middle of nowhere. Actually, it wasn't in the middle of nowhere. It was beyond Montgomery. But anyway, that's beside the point. There used to be a church that had like 12 or 16 massive pecan trees out there. And I remember every single year the church would put these massive "no trespassing, get your ass out of here" signs and stuff like that. Like, they would not share those pecans whatsoever. And they were literally right on the side of the street, like in a very busy area. So I always remember that. Like, there was always just pecans all over the ground, but that church would not let you touch those pecans, like, at all. It was kind of crazy.
Man, folks, that church would literally be like, "Praise the Lord, be generous and kind to folks. You never know when someone needs the help." And then when those pecans came in season, "Get your ass off our property. You don't belong.
Don't touch my nuts.
And honestly, man, I'll be honest with y'all, that was like basically every single church in our hometown was like that. They preached be kind and nice to people. And then when it came to protecting what was theirs, man, it was a slug and fight. They beat your ass to protect whatever they had, whether it was pecans or something else. It was always a little interesting to see that a lot of them didn't really follow what they preached, But beyond that, that whole pecan deal, dude. Honestly, man, you just reminded me of that. And I don't know if we won't show the church, but I know the church you're talking about because they had that row of pecan trees right near their place, and we go by it every day on the bus. But anyways. It's something right there. It's something, I'd say. But it's quite interesting. The natural range of them isn't in Alabama. I want to know where they're at in the modern day, rather than the natural range, because they're farther than this. And also interesting that they follow the Mississippi River. Look at that. They almost go all the way up to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Man, you can have a pecan pie anywhere on the Mississippi. Unless you get up towards Hot Dog Man's territory. He killed them all off. He sat there and said, "Aw, man, I like cracking something else rather than nuts." And then the pecans were like, "All right, I'm packing up." And then they left. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Jay Bagwell. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls on Fire, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Jenna, for that $20 support. And they said, have you ever noticed turkey gobblers look a lot like me?
I've never thought of it that way. But now that you say it, I mean, you do have a point. You have a point.
You know what the turkeys kind of look like?
What do they look like, Matthew? What do you think they look like?
That fella that used to walk around a lot in Russia, that guy who used to, go around, some say you had to wear sunglasses when you were in his presence. Nutsack, Prigozhin, that's who it kind of reminds me of.
Honestly, man, you know what this bird reminds me of?
What?
Mr. Senator, you have to remember that we are in an important time and place and situation, and I'm about to trip and fall.
You're mistaken. That's a lame duck. It's not a turkey.
Oh, come on. Come on. Oh, man. Turkeys are one hell of a... They're a beautiful bird because of the feathers, but that face is a face only a mother can love. Turkeys look pretty rough. But something that doesn't look rough, Matthew, are a mule deer. And I actually saw some today. I can't say where. But I actually saw some of these mule deer today, man, wandering around the streets of Salt Lake.
I like these deer because their snouts are really big. Like, they have this kind of goofy look about them. I think that's why I like them.
Man, that's the whitetail. This is the one we're familiar with in Alabama. This is the mule deer, which is out here.
See the difference between the two? The mule deer looks chill. The whitetail looks like it's about to just start running in front of a car.
This one said, "Huh? Headlights? Insurance claim? Oh!" Meanwhile,
smash me.
Yo, yo, hold up.
Wait, hold, pause.
Oh my God, bro, smash me, bro.
That sounded desperate too. That didn't come out right either. That had bad phrasing, bad tone, bad everything. Damn.
That's the one I saw today.
Yeah, see, that looks chill. And also, they're kind of on the fatter side. They're eating good.
Man, those things eat well. Little chunky fella right there. But let's see. And then there's also this other cool one, which is the antelope deer. I haven't seen one of these around here at the moment. But I hope to see one soon, because these pronghorns are really cool to me. I think they're neat looking, really unique.
Yeah, they kind of do look a little unique.
Bro, look at this one, the dick. I'm not even kidding. That's the name of this. I'm not saying that to say it. It's literally the name of this creature.
Yeah.
Bro, this one was invited to the Diddy party. I was told.
And he didn't tell him no.
Ain't nothing like a Diddy party.
It's like, bro, it's just like hundreds of these. Man, honestly. Oh, man. But these pronghorns are neat nonetheless. I've always heard them called antelope deer, but apparently they're pronghorns.
Oh, look at that one right there, though. Go back up a little bit. That one, the green background on it, to the right.
Ooh.
Wow. Ah,
Hey, yo, what's up, bro? I'm the pronghorn. Like,
that's a bro. Put him on a green screen.
yo, what's up, bro? I smoke weed and then wander up the
Wait a
rocks.
minute.
Like,
You know, this deer right here, this thing reminds me of that guy that says, "You ain't got no rolly. You ain't got that dump truck."
oh man, bro, this one's like looks like he's about to tell you he's on that grind set.
He ain't grinded it out. Yo, bro, have you gotten all that hedge fund? That rolly?
Dude, honestly, it does look a lot like that. But these, look at them, bro. They look cute. They look cute. Except for this one. This one looks a little stupid, but these are cute looking.
You ain't got that rolly.
Bro, this one said, I want a rolling.
could I be a rolly?
Bro, this one said,
Yes, you can be a rolly if you want to be one. Yeah.
dude, this one said, I saw a rolling once. I saw my friend roll off the hood of a car. Man, like,
Oh, come on, man. Don't do them like that. Don't do them like that. That's going too far.
dude, this one looks like it shops at designer clothes stores with how the fur looks. Like the fur
Yeah, it
looks
looks
manicured.
groomed.
Yeah, it looks well groomed. It's even got like a turtleneck collar around the neck. I feel like this thing actually. What the hell is that,
That's that thing.
bro? This like goes around going, bro. Like, yeah. What is where? Oh hell no! These things are Russian. They're Saiga
A
antelopes.
Saiga antelope named after that shotgun I was trying to tell you about last night.
Dude, this thing is busted. Like, this thing is messed up. Oh my god.
Oh, that nose is off.
Dude, this is the first animal I think you'd actually advise to get a nose job, and it wouldn't be that bad of an idea. This is horrendous. And they're apparently from Russia. So yeah, Russian. Oh my god.
Damn, they got that busted looking antelope.
Oh my god, dude, this is terrible.
Is that a tiger?
There's hundreds of them. No, that was like a dead one. Oh, that was one that's laying in the grass. But, man, dude, they got them in a museum in Russia. Like, look at our coveted bastard animal. Like,
This right here is something that the Russian Federation had for a long time. It withstood the USSR and the whole collapse. It withstood the ruble collapsing. It withstood Putin destroying everything. This animal's been here and they saw it all. And it was able to smell it, too.
and some even say that this thing is the mother of Lavrov. It's like, oh my god.
They saw this thing and they said, the explorer said, "Bliat, what the hell is this? We have to make this a museum piece."
So apparently, folks, people poach the horns off of these things like they're like prized possessions. I didn't
Why do they
know.
have two shotgun shells over there?
We call this Magnum.
Is that what they used to take it down?
This is a special medicine for people who would like to experience the other side. You know? It's like,
Man, I've never seen hunters like save the shell casings and bring them back and case them up.
I've never seen that either in my life. This thing is absolutely ugly, though. That is terrible, and it's the deer of Russia. Like, oh, ours look way better, like way better than that. Dude, that one's booking it
Yeah, really.
right by the cameraman. It's like, what's behind this thing for it to be running at the cameraman? Dude, this guy is hyped to be near some pronghorn, bro. He's like, oh my god, it's pronghorns, man. It's like, man, I'd be hyped too to be around that many pronghorns. They look majestic, really. What are some other cool animals from around here? Wildlife of Utah. Let's find out. Because I know the wildlife of Alabama, but I want to find the fauna of Utah. We don't want to know the.
We have black widows. We have black widows in Alabama. It's not just like unique to Utah.
Yeah, and then they got crawfish, and pill bugs.
Everybody's got roly-polies.
Yeah, everyone's got a roly-poly. Let's see. We don't want to know about all them insects and butterflies and shit.
Yeah, I remember there was a restaurant like back in Montgomery, Alabama. It was called Roly Poly Oli or something like that, or Roly Poly or something like that. I remember there was like a whole big deal. Like apparently the roly-poly got held up or something like that at gunpoint by some loony bin, like that went in there or something like that.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
they took all the money out of the register, and they also demanded like a sandwich or something too while they were in there. And then it turns out, I think the guy who owned that roly-poly actually ended up, I think, becoming the mayor at some point too.
He still
I think.
is. He still is the mayor, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy work, honestly.
So, the natural wildlife of the state of Utah, the American bison. These are cool. Don't get close to them, though. They'll kill you. Also, the ground squirrel.
That's I think I've seen one of those actually. I think that was that rabbit looking thing that we saw, and it was like we were like, oh look, that's cute, and then it jumped around a little frantically, and we're like, wait a minute, that thing seems a little aggressive.
Dude, I said, oh look, wildlife. And I pointed at it and then started moving at light speed, and we were like, I don't know about that. And then the black-tailed jackrabbit.
Oh yeah, those things are always out in like the little. This is the animal toys on those like alien movies and stuff like that. They'll have this jumping around the desert for the UFO shows up or something.
Yeah, actually, Matthew, I heard that this is actually the creature that recorded the phone call between Witkoff and Ushakov.
Those are usually deployed around bases, and they're actually equipped with spy devices in the ears.
Man, honestly, I wouldn't doubt it. Also, apparently, they have desert bighorn sheep. That's basically a ram. That's pretty cool. They also have chipmunks, but we had those in Birmingham, so those aren't special. Then they have elk. Elk, you gotta have the elk.
Dangerous.
Yeah, man. Also, have you ever heard those things like do their like mating call? Like it's bizarre sounding. It sounds like something out of a horror movie. It's like I was like, what the hell? Oh, they have porcupines. That's really cool. They have porcupines. We didn't have those in Alabama, I don't think. I never saw one. Then they have the spotted
skunk.
bat and the western spotted skunk.
Well, they have like an old picture of that. Like nobody's really seen those in a minute.
The last man who saw one of these, he hardly made it back with his life. Man, it's like I wouldn't mess with. Oh, look, they have river otters. Otters.
Oh, well, look at that.
I think the otters are pretty neat, honestly. Let's see. What's a grasshopper mouse? Oh, that's just an average mouse. Apparently, they're only over here though, so that's weird. I swore that I saw one of those in Alabama. And then they got flying squirrels, and then they got a pocket gopher. What the hell? It's like a mole, really. Interesting. Let's see here.
We have a mole in our midst.
The ring-tailed cat.
King Julian.
King John! King John!
That looks like a lemur.
Honestly, it kind of does, man. They said we didn't have lemurs in America. I think they're lying. The rock squirrel. Dun 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 dun. Rock squirrel.
What's kind of typical?
Honestly, man, I don't even know why in the world they like speciate the squirrels. Like they all basically are the same animal, you know? Like actually, no, it changed that. That one actually is kind of drippy though, with like that fur pattern.
Kinda.
Also, it looks kind of chill, really. Pretty cute. Let's see, what else do we have? That's the bighorn sheep. That's the ram. A bat. Dude, why not? This guy's like, look at this bat. And that bat's like, let me go. Man, it's like, he's like, wow, this is neat.
That thing's like, I'm going to cause the next pandemic.
Man, he said, oh, you think it's funny now? I'll get turned into a soup. Look who's laughing there.
Man, do not turn them into soups. Don't do it.
Man, and then they got the snowshoe hare and the vole and the spotted bat. And then they got the striped skunk. That's the normal skunk, like everyone has that one. The big-eared bat. Does it have big ears? Oh, it does. Like, those are huge ears, actually. Bats are quite odd looking. Some of them are cool, but I don't really think... Oh, look at that! The Uintah chipmunk. That is really cute looking.
Yeah, I like these fur patterns. Very sleek fur. Their animals are clean out here.
They're streamlined, like, for efficiency. They also have the Uintah... I know I'm mispronouncing this, I'm very sure. But this
Uintah.
thing... The what?
Uintah.
Uintah, okay. This is the Uintah ground squirrel.
Look at that.
King Julian! Man, like...
no, this is a squirrel.
Man, this one... Oh, dude, these are cool. I like these.
That's like almost marmot. That's almost marmot. Getting very close.
That is very close to being a marmot, honestly. Very,
Oh,
very
governor,
close.
it's very close to his mate.
The vagrant shrew. Man, they had to insult
That
this
va-
one. Like that damn vagrant.
Vagrant shrew coming right here and being a vagrant. Look at that shrew, that wild shrew. Look at it.
Bro, did they damn, like, club this thing before they took the picture? It's like, how, like,
Said,
it's dead.
wow. You get a picture of it now, Lenny.
Bro, they said, damn vagrant. Bop. Okay, now take a picture. It's like, oh my God. Let's see, a waterfall. They don't have a picture of that, apparently. Okay, apparently that one must be rare. I don't know. They also have that fat mouse, and then they have this one that's apparently a skull only. No picture. They also have the jumping mouse. That little sucker would jump. I mean, look at that foot. That's like a bird, like, foot back there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that either. I feel like that thing, I feel like if you got close to one of those, it would, like, lunge at you or, like, start sprinting at you and attack you.
They have a Wolverine and a yellow-bellied marmot. Yellow-bellied.
Oh my God! That
Hey,
one's
that one's
chill.
smiling. Look at that. That one's chilling out.
Man, that one's chill. This one, it's well-fed individual standing.
Oh, hello there, Governor. Welcome to Utah.
Bro, this one said, "Hello there. I've been hitting the bins down in the city, and they've been quite delightful, really." It's like, oh my God.
Where can you find these? Like, where are they in the state?
They are quite literally all over Utah, apparently.
We need to find where these are because I need to see one of these in real life.
Dude, I want to see this one. This one's chilling.
Or, Governor, you find him sitting on the rock thinking about it all at the end of the day.
Man, this one's sitting up there. It's like, what's wrong, Mr. Marmot? I got laid off from my job. They called me redundant today. Like,
Bro,
it's like,
bro, there's literally like a dogfight going on outside, like legit. I just heard a dog screaming, yelping, and stuff. I don't know what the hell's going on out there. A dog's been going berserk for the last 30 minutes, like barking nonstop. Then I just heard, yip, yip, yip. I think somebody's got sick of it.
huh? Well, to each their own out there. Like, honestly, dude, there's always like a dogfight happening outside your place, like every day, nearly. I think.
Yeah, people got to get a grip on those dogs out here. I'm telling you, this is like crazy work.
Dude, we can also
Look at these things.
We can see these marmots having a feast of trash left on the side of the road. Very, very nutritious. And this one that's laying perfectly flat on this rock.
We need to find these. We need to find them.
We need to find one and turn it into a pet. That's illegal, by the way. I'm just kidding. But but still, really cool animal. And also, where was that? The Wolverine. Oh, that's really cool looking.
Oh, look at that. That's like almost like close to like a badger, like a honey badger almost, like in the face.
It's like a little miniature bear.
It's like, yeah, it really does look like it's of the same species as a honey badger almost.
Yeah. And they just are in Utah by like a tad. Like, this is the furthest south they go in the Americas. That is crazy. Look at that. That one looks a little unhappy.
Damn. Yeah, I'm telling you, those things are like very close to honey badgers right there. I kind of like to see one of these like from a distance.
From a distance, he had to clarify.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, they look like they're vicious.
Yeah, I think they are. I think that's why they have the reputation that they have. But this one's in Norway, so I don't know. Maybe they all look the same. All over the world, but oh look, dude, that's that psycho looking jackrabbit, man. The one with the eyes that are bulging out. It's like, I see everything. Like, it's like that one that's crazy.
Crazy looking rabbits.
Man, that's the one that they have on the Area 51 stuff right there. And then they have white-tailed deer. That's like a common deal. And then these are all of their reptiles. Yo, they have a skink.
Damn. Why's he got lipstick on?
Give me a fat boy. Like, man,
What the hell was that?
man, you know the reference to the movie It. You know the one, like, where that guy had like the clown mask on his hand and he, like, was taunting that dude, and he opened up the door and he said, "Kiss me, fat boy," and then, like, he got punched in like the hand. You remember that? You remember that meme?
I think I vaguely remember the meme. I think right after you mentioned it, but that's wild work there. That's wild.
That's right. Let's go find this mini line skink. Ah, so these aren't from here. These are down in, like, southeast Utah, so not anything we'd see. We had a different kind of skink. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find one for y'all folks, because they were quite bizarre looking. Oh, they have a million different species. So let me just pull up the, let's see. It was the black skink with blue and yellow stripes. Let me go pull it up. Ah, yes.
Oh my God. Oh man, somebody's laying down some nasty work in the chat right here on someone, ex-wife or something. Damn, somebody's going off.
I mean, this is the one we used to have in Alabama, and this thing was always honestly really scary whenever it would show up because the colors are so bizarre. You would think it's toxic. It's not, or more so
It is
poisonous.
toxic.
Really?
Yeah, if a dog eats that, their dog's in trouble. Remember, even licking that thing right there would put a dog in trouble.
I don't think they were like bad for us though. These are the juveniles though, but I never saw one that turned into an adult. Like I only saw these like once or twice. They were always juveniles. They'd die before they grow up. But let's see here. Let's see if we can find anything about them being poisonous. Reproduction. We don't really give a damn about the reproduction. No, let's see. Five-line skink. Oh, there it was. Poisonous. Hey, you see, they're not poisonous or venomous.
It's just the humans.
Huh. Interesting, yeah. So
Whenever the dog would go lick it or something like that, the dog was in foul shape.
oh yeah,
So,
the dogs would be
it's not
bad
as-
off.
Yeah, they were real bad off. So there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, but I just don't like these things, folks, at all. And they also were so weird acting. Like if you could if a lizard could ever be described as sleaze acting, it was these. Like they'd always act the weirdest, like to where you really didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't like these, so I don't really like skinks in general. And the fact that this one's wearing like Heath Ledger Joker lipstick is quite odd as well. But the ornate tree lizard, dude, that's just an Enoch.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, we're way too deep down the rabbit hole here. We're going to be moving on to the next one. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than Marion Deemer, a longtime channel legend, by the way, who put in a $50 support literally right this second, right now. And a huge shout to you, Marion, for once again helping to keep the channel running. And Marion said, wishing you both a happy Turkey Day, and please give me a website where I can send you a direct message and hugs.
And thank you so much for the Turkey Day wishes, and massive hugs to you as well, Marion Deemer. And as far as directly reaching out to us, the best way to do that is through our Twitter DMs, Marion Deemer. And I hope that we will see you over there soon. But a massive thanks to you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so big thanks to you so much once again. And also, some people are like, Enoch, that's cool. Enoch is not a real name for any of those animals. Enoch is from Land of the Lost. And I'll tell you all the reference here because this is what we've called them forever. But this is the Enoch creature deal right here. And when we were kids, our mom let us watch Land of the Lost, the original one where he looked like that. So we had never seen one of these before, neither did our mom, and she saw one of those lizards that we just showed on Wikipedia a second ago, and she was like, that thing looks like Enoch from, like, Land of the Lost. So then in our family, from there on, we called all of those lizards Enochs. That's like our given name to it. That's not the real name, and no one would know what we're talking about unless if we're in our family, but that's why I called it an Enoch, and that's why Matthew knew exactly what I was talking about, because our whole life we've called those Enoch lizards. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than, it's going to be Joel, have a fair day to you. And thank you very much for that $20 support, by the way. We do appreciate that very, very much. And he said to the LSA brothers and fellow subscribers and citizens, both here and abroad, and thanks so much for the news to educate us. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And everyone have a safe holiday season. And you all have a fair day.
And I thank you so much as well. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a fair day today and tomorrow. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from John Combest. And thank you very much, John, as well. And John said, let's see here. I do see what you said, John. Sadly, I can't repeat it, though, because I can't verify it. And, you know, with certain individuals these days, they get very testy about certain things. If you say things and they don't like it, they get very testy about it, and they might try to retaliate. So I will have to pass on reading that one off. But I did see what you said, though. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say big thanks to you for support, John Combest. But at the same time, we can't really read that off, and then we can't really talk about it because there are particular individuals out there, which is a lot of people on YouTube that take great offense to anyone ever disagreeing with them. And so it usually turns into a beef, although it wasn't intended to be a beef. And then some people would get involved. It becomes a big thing. So unfortunately, we really can't comment on that because I'll be honest with you, I like doing my job, but at the same time, I'm really happy that we kind of got over all the beefs that we used to have. They kind of just all disappeared after a while, because that was a whole other thing to take care of, and a very stressful deal to take care of in the early years of the channel. So we generally try and avoid, stirring the pot with any of those folks, that person included. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cookie56. And thank you very much, Cookie, for that $20 support and helping to keep the channel running. He said, let's see. He says, I see the people in Ukraine every morning, and I am sick of their suffering because the world does not have the balls to stop it, and it's sickening.
I would agree. It's very sickening to see, but at the same time, there's only so much we can do to stop the war. We can't just stop it right now. It's a bit of a beast that's out of our control at the moment. We can only kind of veer it to where we want it to go, but we really can't do much more than that. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. So a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Eddie Daniels. And Eddie puts in a 20, and thank you very much, good sir, Eddie, for that support. He said, best news on the planet, spoken by a 75-year-old lad, and LOL, and happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind words and the support. And thank you so much for the high praise. I mean, hell, that's quite high praise right there, to be entirely honest. And we're greatly appreciative of it. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make it possible and keep it running. And so with that, a humongous thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Peter Burrow. And a huge shout to you, Peter, as well, for that support. He said, hello, Enforcers. So what's the preferred food on Thanksgiving? Enjoy whatever you eat. And please ask a live question and LSA.
The preferred food on Thanksgiving. I'm going to sound...
I prefer to have turkey. Turkey is good. I like the turkey.
We've had hams a couple of times for Thanksgiving, and I've just never really been a big fan of the hams for Thanksgiving. The turkey is pretty good, but honestly, my favorite dish, this is going to sound so lame, but I love them, are freshly baked dinner rolls with butter. That is probably the best thing, in my opinion, at Thanksgiving, is the dinner rolls. And that sounds like the most bland thing, but it's something about like the freshness of the dinner roll and the taste of like the just the fresh cookedness of it. You know, you get to taste the yeast inside of the roll, you get to taste the bread, the butter's really good on it, it's all piping hot. I mean, honestly, and then the texture is great. I mean, it's just a great piece of bread. And I'm a big person for appreciating a good piece of bread. So I would say that freshly cooked and freshly baked dinner rolls are really, really good. But if I had to go for something else that was a little bit less mundane, I probably would go with dressing, or stuffing is what some people call it, because that is also really, really good, at least from our family recipe. It's one of the best things that we have at Thanksgiving, and with some gravy on top, it's great. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
I don't know why, but when you say gravy just then, it reminded me of that episode where that Paulie fella off that little sitcom, The Sopranos,
Give me that macaroni and
I want
gravy.
the macaroni and gravy.
Yeah.
I mean, macaroni and gravy. And the Italians mocked him for it. You remember that?
Yeah, and then they sent him to like the bathroom for like dogs or something like that when he wanted to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
How much more disrespect can I take? Give me some of that macaroni and gravy. Man, he said it like it was like the greatest thing on the planet. Honestly, dude, that you know what's crazy, dude, is that actor actually was once an actual mobster. Did you know that?
Yeah, I think he was small time.
Yeah, he was like a small time guy, but he still had some involvement with him. And like his character was actually based off him because he actually went into the army and his character was in the army and then he was involved in the mob, but he wasn't as heavily involved in the mob as his character was, but still pretty neat. And also, Matthew, I just saw Fog 37. I unfortunately have forgotten your actual name, but I know your profile picture.
Bobo.
Yeah, Bobo Vesquez. He said, counteract your bro and make a poll. Yeah, actually, Matthew, make a poll on that. Pick four of what you would think the most popular Thanksgiving food items would be, and put them up on a poll, and let's see what we get as the results, as what people think is their favorite Thanksgiving dish. Because I'd actually be interested to know what y'all like to eat on Thanksgiving. But anyways, while Matthew makes that poll, we'll move on to the next one and give him some time here to write that thing up. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our next one here goes to, actually, we need to grab a live chat for Peter Burrow, also known as Guess Who? It's, who's Peter Burrow known as, by the way? It's Flash One. And Flash One, also, by the way, I hate that they changed the username, by the way, because now I have to try to remember that, and it's hard to remember. I look at it and I say, who is it? Who is it? But it's Flash. But anyways, Flash asked for a live chat question, and getting that live chat question, this one goes to the Bearded, who said, do we have any updates on what happened to the forced conscription of Ukraine citizens by the Russians?
It's still ongoing. We don't get a huge amount of updates from behind the lines and occupied territories from what we would know. That's still ongoing at the moment, and they are continuing to conscript Ukrainian citizens into the Russian armed forces. That's actually been going on for a while now. It's nothing that's particularly new, but it's always unfortunate to hear about and see. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to MechTild55, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, MechTild, for that support. They said it's chipping in to heat your new home. And take one from the chat.
Hey, thank you so much for the support on heating the new home. And I gotta be honest with y'all, folks. The utilities out here are wildly cheap compared to what they are in Alabama. Because Matthew, I actually got my electricity bill recently here, and I was like, this is unbelievably low. It was $40 for half of the month. And I was like, wow. Like in Alabama, that's unheard of. I think it would be like $70 for half of the month, somewhere around there. Here, it was only $40, and I was like, wow. I was like, that is insane. I mean, the utilities are actually affordable around here. I mean, wasn't it the case, Matthew, that it was like $70 for half a month in Alabama or so?
It was actually more than that. It was usually about probably about $100 for half the month.
Damn. And it's colder out here too, and it's $40 for half of the month. Like it's honestly insane how different the pricing is out here on utilities. It's like you just wouldn't think it would be the case either, because when you think about it, a lot of the electricity and a lot of everything else kind of has to be railroaded or trucked into Salt Lake. It's not close to anywhere that produces that sort of stuff. Well, coal is actually quite close, but outside of that, it's not incredibly close to most things, and yet the utilities here are way cheaper than they were in Alabama. So that was really wild to me, at least. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much for helping us to keep the heat on, because you're going to be helping us to keep the heat on for some time there. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Drop Trades LLC, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, good sir, once again for that support. He said, wait till the growlers mess things up. It's going to be hilarious. And the Russian and Chinese stuff goes fubar.
I appreciate you for knowing what the growlers are. They're the electronic warfare aircraft of the Navy. And I got to thank you so much for the support, because those electronic warfare aircraft, they really do a great job, I got to say. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep running. And they are no joke, no doubt about that. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Shauna, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Shauna, as well, for that $20 support. And they said, thanks for always keeping us updated, and happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And we always love to keep y'all all updated. And you have a happy Thanksgiving as well. And a humongous thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
And we have a 20 here from Steve Blanchard. And thank you very much, Steve, for that $20 support. And he said, happy Thanksgiving.
And happy Thanksgiving to you as well, and to the whole of the Lee Spring Army. And a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And also, Matthew, I realized that our poll has gotten back some clear results. So would you like to read them aloud?
So what is the best Thanksgiving food item? And it looks like 41% said turkey, 29% said stuffing, 18% said ham, 12% said dinner rolls.
Man, that's crazy, honestly. I knew that the turkey would win out, but I didn't think the dinner rolls would lose out that badly.
I didn't think so either. Maybe they just don't have the good rolls like we've been familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're thinking of like Hawaiian rolls or something like that, you know. And Hawaiian rolls are okay. I mean, they're not bad, but it's also not a dinner roll. Like, let me go see if I can pull up for y'all what we know as the dinner roll, because we have a family recipe for our dinner rolls that is cooked up on Thanksgiving, and they sublime. Like truly, they are the greatest pieces of bread ever made. Let me see here. Yeah, it's kind of like these with the glistening brown tops to them that have been covered in butter, and then you put some butter in them. Man, they're so good. They're the greatest. They're the greatest. Like, the best piece of bread ever made in the year is the dinner rolls for Thanksgiving. Every single year. Without doubt. Without
Oh,
question.
look at how it's just like so tall.
And puffy. Man, it's got a great texture. You bite into that thing, it's like biting into a cloud, and it's got a flavor like nothing else. But we also have dressing or stuffing food. Let me type that in here. Let's see here. We don't have this kind. I don't know what the hell that is. That's not the dressing we have. The dressing we have is almost like a cake, nearly. And I don't see a single one like that.
These are casseroles.
Yeah, these aren't these aren't dressing. Let me type in
Oh, not
dressing.
that stovetop junk. Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
yeah, that stuff is nasty. Ours is that's kind of like it. Yeah, that's getting kind of close to it. It's kind of like that, but it looks way better. What in the hell? What is that?
I don't know what the hell that is.
That
Like,
looks like just like straight up cornmeal in like a bowl.
yeah.
I don't know about that. What the? Bro, what are these people cooking? Like, what is that? That looks like dog
Ugh.
food.
Grandmama got mixed up between the pate for Fido and, something that was supposed to be right for the people.
Man, that's an all-in-one meal right there for the dogs and people at the same time. I gotta be honest with y'all, folks. Nobody looks. What the hell? The hell is she holding? Bro, that looks like shit. Like, this all looks terrible. Like, this is not dressing and stuffing, folks. Like, I don't know what this stuff is, but it is not what we eat. We like y'all gotta have one day our dressing that we have at our house that our mom cooked for Thanksgiving and still does, because it's
Get off this
very
picture of this lady. This lady's freaking me out for some reason. Like, the staring me in the face like that. I'm not liking it.
Honestly, it was kind of like weirding me out too. I was just ignoring it and getting on to the monologue. You sly dog, you got me monologuing. But anyways, none of this is what we eat, like, at all. Like, I don't know what this stuff is. But let's see. Let's see. If you get those rolls, you're doing great. Oh yeah, you are, Annette. You are doing great if you get like the fresh cooked dinner rolls. And let's see here. Let's see. Stovetop is stuffing. Dressing is different. Yeah, but even the dressings don't come up the right way. Like, this is not dressing. And also Nosferatu is saying that too. I don't know. And someone said that looks like shepherd's pie. I mean, it really did. Like, it did, didn't it? It didn't look like dressing. None of this looks like dressing. People are putting their crappy recipes out here on the internet and going, here's how I cook my homemade thing. But let me tell you a story about when I was in a cabin in 1977. It's like, this is not dressing. I don't know what this is, but these aren't the good recipes being shared around, you know? But let's see. What's another dish? Another dish that's usually at Thanksgiving, Matthew. What's another one?
Honestly, there's a lot of dishes. I mean, we could be here a long time going over all the dishes.
Yeah, and we probably don't have that time. How many super chats do we have?
We have about 10.
No, we got this.
11.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're gonna get on back into the questions. But what do we got, Matthew?
So our next one goes to Pirate Dive Bar. And thank you very much, Pirate Dive Bar, for that $20 support. And also, by the way, I do see the super chat there. And if you want to send us an email to our official business email, which is on our YouTube About page, we will take a look at that. But sadly, I can't read it off, though, without doing some research into it first. But Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to you for the support. And please reach out if you would like to give us a proposition of a sort. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to none other than guess who? It is going to be Robert Betancourt yet again. And thank you very much, Robert, for that $20 support once again. He said, I am thankful for the 27 years of military and the 25 years of civil service. And how about a sailability on Lake Pendleton renamed to Code Talker Lake?
Let's see. Where in the world is Lake Pendleton? Pendleton. Is it this lake right here? Lake Pendleton?
Is that it?
I think it might be.
Syracuse?
I think it might be this lake right here. I mean, honestly, if you wanted to rename it, I think the last Navajo code talker died a couple of days ago of old age. So if you want to rename one, honestly, they were a huge part of American military history, especially in the Pacific. I feel like there ought to be some lakes or natural landmarks named to their honor, considering the kind of importance that they had in the Second World War. And so I would have to say, if they want to rename it around there, the municipality does, I'd say, I'll go for it. Probably be a high honor. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Robert Betancourt yet again. He puts in another 20, by the way, and a huge shout out to you, Robert, for that generosity. He said in 1950s, the Air Force dropped an atomic bomb near Bombay Beach, Salton Sea. The southeast section of the Salton Sea produces lithium carbonate.
Lithium carbonate? Oh, that sounds like some stuff that'd be put in a Tesla. But lithium carbonate, eh? Is that what they say? Lithium carbonate. There's a lot of power plants around the bottom of this place. Look at that. What the hell? There's like 4 power plants here. Look at this. Hudson Ranch Power 1. That's a power station. Then they got Elmore Geothermal Facility. And then they
This is near the lithium area right here?
I suppose. This is in the southeast corner.
Isn't that where that bunny was spawned that's always going around, like, the one in the battery commercials is always going around, like, beating and stuff like that?
I think. Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah,
the what's it Duracell bunny or the Energizer bunny? Yeah, the Energizer bunny.
I think so. You gotta be careful about that ripoff one. Like the one we saw in that Costco one time in China. Man, honestly, that one was scary. Also, oh my goodness, dude, it's Salton City, the abandoned Salton City. Look at this. I wonder if we can get Street View. Yeah, we can. Let's take a look. Look, the beautiful abandoned Salton City.
Damn. That looks like where Trevor from GTA 5 used to live.
Yeah, this is that's what they modeled that off of.
Wow, jeez, I'll tell you what, this is a Sandy Shores. Or wait a minute, this is damn, I forgot what they called it. But y'all know what I mean.
Y'all know what he means. I know what he means. Let's take a look at this yacht club. Oh, they don't have pictures of it. Let's take a look at this old marina.
Sandy Shores, that's it. Sandy Shores.
Yeah, Sandy Shores. How about the motel by the sea? Is it still open? Oh, it is.
Wow.
What's up with the hay?
Hey, hey.
Hey. like, I don't know.
Drinks.
I don't know if I'd stay here, this motel. It's just the geography of it, where it is and all. It's kind of in like the middle of nowhere, and there's not really a city there. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd live there, but interesting. But still, big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running and telling us that little bit about the southeast corner of Salton Sea. And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Coleslaw87. And thank you very much, Coleslaw, for that $20 support. He said, happy early Thanksgiving. And if Taiwan was invaded, how long do you think it would take? For the invasion? And thank y'all for the great news coverage.
I would say that it'd probably take several months up to a year if Taiwan got no support for China to actually take the island. Wars are usually never fought and won quickly. It's actually quite rare if they are. So for that reason, it'll probably take a little bit of time, even with the Taiwanese getting no support for China to actually succeed in taking the island. If Taiwan gets foreign support and direct arms support from the United States, China may never take the island, truth be told. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a massive thanks to you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel alive and rolling. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Patrick Chapdelaine. And thank you very much, Patrick, as well, for that $20 support. He said, do you think that China could use Decepticon and strike, or hold on, let me restart. Do you think that China could use deception and strike in 2026 and enjoy the Costco chicken?
Did you just say Decepticons out of like the Transformers? Do you think they get used Decepticons? I was like,
I mean,
what?
the way it's done in my spreadsheet is it's like it's in two lines. So Costco chicken was right underneath Deception. So all of the C's kind of blended in. It looked like Decepticon for a second. I don't know why, but yeah, totally unintentional.
Bro, you read that and I was thinking like Decepticons from like Transformers. Dude, I was about to come out of that and be like, no, because those aren't real. Like those are from a comic. But still, I would say that China could definitely use deception. China is actually they lean very heavily in their tactics into deception, being one of their main plays of the game, if you want to call it that, in diplomacy and also in war. So they would most likely use deception heavily in any action that they're doing. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, we better move on before the Decepticons get us. Autobots roll out. But with that, we are on to the next one.
My theory is this, because I'm not really sure. I see there's like, it looks like Bobo Uzala is a huge Transformer fan. I don't really know a lot of people that actually watch the Transformer movies, like that are actually like really, really into it. I think a lot of people are watching just because that girl's in that movie. That's my hunch.
Man, I know a decent amount of people who thought the Transformers were pretty cool. But when I say a decent amount, I mean I'm talking about like less than a handful, maybe like 4 people. But it wasn't like the hugest thing. Like they're more so into Star Wars or something else rather than Transformers. And also, I gotta say, folks, why in the world is it even ambiguous in the Transformers universe who in the world you're supposed to be aligning with? I mean, there's literally a group called Decepticons. They're deceiving conmen. That's literally the name of their group. It's like, who in the world would align with them, at all? Like anyone. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna align with the deception. Well, I mean, then again, there are political parties, so I mean, maybe that's not like that far fetched. But at the same time, Decepticons. I mean, like it's like that's the name of the bad group. I mean, it's kind of like a little on the nose. But anyways, with that, we are.
I just remember whenever like I would hear people talking about it, like especially really more around high school. That's like the last time I ever heard people talking about Transformers. Was people were always talking about that actor, somebody just said it right there, Megan Fox is in it and stuff like that. Everybody was always going crazy about that. I was like, are people watching the movie because they like the movie, or are they watching it because the girls in the movie? I'm like, I think it's like half and half, like for some of these people watching it. But yeah, it was like always a talking point.
Yeah, like I don't really remember that too much myself. I didn't even know that there was a chick involved in the movie. I never saw a single one of them, but still quite interesting though, quite interesting nonetheless. And also I see some people being like, yeah, it's from a children's show. Yeah, but I mean at the same time though, even though it's a children's show, I just feel like sometimes like the children's show sort of thing kind of like dumbs stuff down so much that it's like, it's kind of like stupefying kids. Like I kind of liked it when shows were more real and more nuanced, like back in the olden times, like the older decades before now, because they didn't make stuff super simplified to the point that it was like simplified for dummies to reach the widest audience. Like if you didn't get it, you just didn't get it. And you just had to eventually grow up and learn. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $12 support from Live Animal. And thank you very much, Live Animal. They said the Russians leaked the audio to make Rubio and the Ukrainians look bad. And the U.S. government is divided in 2 factions, and the intelligence faction is against Rubio. Now, here's what's interesting about that, though. I actually just disagree with that. I don't think. Now, here's the thing. The intelligence faction in the United States, it is true. There's like groups of people in the intelligence sector of the United States that have like their own little agenda going on and stuff like that. But it's not anything like super separate. Like it's when I say like an agenda, it's like they have their own little sway that they try to add to things and stuff like that. They obviously can't do a coup. That's not legal. So they can only go so far with it. But I don't think it made the Ukrainians look bad. I think it made the U.S. look bad, and that was pretty much it. So I personally still don't think the Russians leaked it. I think it was likely Ukraine that leaked it, or maybe another European country that was pissed off with the way it was being handled by Witkoff, and they must have leaked it to get revenge for that situation. That's my guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd actually have to agree with Enforcer Matt on that. I wouldn't say it made the Ukrainians look bad at all. It made the Ukrainians look like a sympathetic victim, and they're getting shafted. So I wouldn't say it made them look bad. I'd say it made the United States look quite bad, and it really made the special envoy look terrible. So generally, I would say that I would more so agree with Enforcer Matt on that. But a big thanks to you once again for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jason Carney, who puts in a 10. And Jason said for the pie fund.
Hey, thank you so much for the pie fund. We are going to make sure to get a pie, at least one, maybe two. But a humongous thanks to you once again for the support and help this channel to keep running. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $6 support from Snowy, who said, Ukraine produces now so many drones and missiles. Is it likely they work on destroying the Kerch Bridge? And it has been quiet around that bridge lately.
I would doubt it quite heavily. I just don't really think the Kerch Bridge is a strategic target significant enough to even really have an attempted attack on it anymore, to be honest. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I got to make an extra comment here. Like I mentioned earlier, kind of alluded to it. The rumor is that one of those individuals that was involved in the negotiations, I'm not going to say if it was the U.S. side or the Russian side, but the rumor is one of those individuals was using a third-party app. I'm not going to name the app either, but it's a third-party messaging app that also has voice features on it. And people were saying that that was being used to communicate amongst the people. When are these people going to learn that you can't use a third-party app and expect it to be secure? You simply can't. And like, for example, there's apps that the U.S. uses that are approved, which is okay, but you still don't want to discuss classified information on it. You want to use really like properly secure channels for that. You don't want to go jump on a third-party app and start saying things that are classified. That seems like a breach. Also, for the same thing for the diplomats, who's going to go jump and create a group chat or like a phone conversation, a group call on a third-party app they don't even know if it's secure or not? That seems like a stupid idea.
Man, honestly, man, nothing will ever beat the Signal chat scandal of earlier this year. Just adding a chief editor of the Atlantic into the middle of the conversation. Okay, we're gonna bomb the Houthis at this time, and we're gonna do this and that. It's like you couldn't have done any like if that like I'm not kidding, folks. If that had happened at any other time in U.S. history, even just 15 years ago, that would have led to the resignation of the Secretary of Defense. That would have led to the resignation of practically the entire cabinet that was in that group chat, and that may have even brought up impeachment charges on the president. But because we live in the modern day and age, that just happened and nothing came of it at all, although that was a humongous breach of operational security. I mean, that was literally giving in real time before the attacks even happened a complete itinerary and war plan of what we were about to do to the Houthis. If that editor had ended up having any sympathies to the Houthis, he could have tipped them off and let them know exactly what the U.S. was about to do before they did it. That is one of the worst kinds of operational security breaches you could ever have. It's so bad that it's crazy that no one was held accountable for it when it happened. And instead of them going, this is a shame and an embarrassment that this happened, and we're going to have the Secretary of Defense at a minimum resign. Instead, they go after the journalist like it's his fault that the Secretary of Defense apparently added him into the group chat, which is just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen anything like that. That was just bizarro. But anyways, with that.
And also, it's like, I thought, like, for example, now obviously they don't go into skiffs to discuss diplomatic negotiations. They just keep that confidential. They don't have to go that far with it. But you still don't want to use a third-party app, even if you're doing something that you want to keep confidential that's of a national security level like that, where you're literally discussing negotiations between two countries that's very high level. You wouldn't want to do that. Then especially, like, for example, speaking about the Signal thing, it's like that is something you definitely go into a skiff and you talk about it. Like, you don't just go jump on an app and start talking about it. That's like so blatant. That one, I'm still shocked about that one. I'm still kind of blown away by it. And then if you need to communicate with somebody, you'll use a secure phone for that. Like, you don't use your normal personal cell phone. I'm not sure if that's what he was using, but I don't know if you can download Signal on a secure phone or not. I don't think you can. So I think that kind of gives us our answer there a little bit. But you got to use secure stuff. It's just crazy to me that even happened. I wonder if it's still happening.
And also another thing I gotta say, folks, y'all know something that's absolutely crazy, and this just keeps getting by, like no one does anything about it, is that current presidents and former presidents will just have banker boxes of some of the most classified information available in their houses or at their private residences. Like the former president and the current president have done that at different times, and it's like, why in the hell do they have banker boxes of classified materials sitting in their unsecured house where someone could break in and access all of that, or just slip in and access all that? It's like, that is a major national security risk. And it just keeps getting, it just keeps getting ignored because whoever's in charge, if it's found out while they're in charge, nothing happens because the attorney general is not going to go and prosecute the president for mishandling classified materials, and that's happened in 2 administrations now. It's like, what the hell? It's like, it makes you wonder, folks, how many banker boxes of classified documents have gone missing and nobody's just really noticed that. And there's loads of classified information that's somewhere else in another country somewhere. And it's not going to be anything super secret, folks, like how the F-22's radar works or stealth coding or anything like that. But it's going to be a bunch of other stuff that's at the administrative level, at the higher points of the U.S. government, about what our plans are overseas or what our approaches are or what our position is and what position we're going to take behind the scenes. Don't let them know, but work off of this sort of a premise. It lets a lot of people know that sort of stuff. And that is detrimental in foreign policy and diplomacy. There should be better handling of classified materials.
Yeah, there really should be. And also, but there's probably people out there that know this, but the military has their own like cell phone network, like that's via satellite and things like that. They have their own communications networks. It's completely isolated by themselves that they use to speak about classified information that China's always trying to hack. Obviously, they're always trying to hack it. We always try to hack theirs too, I would imagine. But you would think they would use that to discuss this super secret information. But that's what happens when people start prioritizing convenience over keeping things secure. They're like, oh, nobody's gonna get in here or whatever. It's like I could go into a lot about that, but I won't do it because it kind of gets a little bit political. It's trying to hide my disdain for the lack of knowledge or experience is kind of hard a little bit these days with certain individuals. There's one individual in specific that I'm speaking about particularly that everybody knows who I'm talking about, but that guy really is irritating.
Also, Charlie said, if we get a peace plan in, will we get cheaper gas from Russia again? We never bought gas from Russia. Our markets were never affected by that, so the price of gas has nothing to do with the Russians at all. So the answer to that's no. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than Robert Krogan, who puts in a $5 support. And thank you very much, Robert, for that support once again. He said, to heck with the peace agreement. Let Ukraine do the job. And what say the LSA?
I agree. I say let them do the job and let the war keep going until the Russians actually are willing to talk. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Eugene Haynes, who puts in a 5. And Eugene said, he said, let's see here, hold on. The FBI says they were going to track the suspect down, the one up there in Washington, D.C., and he didn't even know the suspect was already in the hospital in custody.
Sometimes that's a lack of intra-agency communication that happens there when they make statements like that. Nothing that's not really too out of key, but I mean, I'm not going to lie, though, that is kind of out of key because in other times in the past, they usually would communicate a lot about what's going on before they make a statement. And a very similar sort of a thing happened during the situation that happened with the shooting in Orem, Utah, and there was a huge amount actually, there was absolutely no communication, it seemed, with the director of the FBI and what was actually going on the ground, because the director of the FBI would say things that weren't even representative of the actual situation on the ground, or they would just continuously apprehend and detain the wrong people, which I think they did about 4 times in a row before they actually found the guy that they finally stuck with the story that he was the one who did it. So, a little bit interesting with that, but, it's what you get, sometimes, but when you put certain people in the charge of the FBI, sometimes they don't really coordinate with the field agents who are actually out there working on a case, and they just say stuff. So, I guess that happens from time to time these days, but a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, do you know historically the CIA and the FBI hate each other? Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, I know that, yeah.
They despise each other for several different reasons. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 5. And Andrew said, preserving life is harder than killing. Desmond Doss is amongst the pantheon of U.S. heroes with Audie Murphy. And shout out to the medics, LLT LSA.
And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And Desmond Doss truly was a war hero. And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, interestingly enough, Desmond Doss actually lived out his later days in life here in Alabama. Well, actually, over in Alabama, which is where we're from. We're not over there anymore. But still, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 Canadian from Zapstrap Z, who put in a 20 Canadian. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, keep up that high quality news, because I hadn't missed a day since I discovered the channel about 6 months ago. And I look forward to your news every day. Even though I often just miss it live, I still haven't missed a day.
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind words, Zabstraps, and thank you for being a loyal viewer. A loyal viewer these days, I say. And I gotta say, it's a wonderful thing to know that you've been enjoying our channel and enjoy the kind of news that we put out, because we try and put it out in a technical sort of a way, but also a simplified way where it's easy to follow, and also we throw in a lot of humor to make it a lot easier to get through the seriousness of the news every day. And I got to thank you greatly for the support and enjoying that, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this kind of approach to news running well and into the future. So a big thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 5. And Quantum Fighter said, I wish you a great Thanksgiving, guys, and keep on being awesome and the best live stream on the net, and get a live chat question. LLT LSA.
Hey, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for the kind words. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Marie Jacobs, who said, any update on that ship that was illegally seized by the Iranians?
No, we've just heard nothing about it. The U.S. did nothing about it, and the world just kept turning, and no one did anything to Iran about it. So a little bit odd, if you ask me. But, I'm not the president, so I don't get to call the shots. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $2 super chat from Blazath, and thank you very much, Blazath, for that support once again. And we also have a 2 from Jeremy Vahill. He said, can you break down the Mongol siege of Samarkand?
Unfortunately, I would not. That's not really a particular region or period of history that I'm incredibly familiar with, and I generally don't look into the history of Genghis Khan or any of his sons, or really the Mongol horde as a whole a lot. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to break down that siege a great deal. So I'd have to declare ignorance on that, unfortunately. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And with that, folks, it is now time to jump into our live chat questions proper. And jumping right into those, first off, we have our Morse code decoders tonight. We have Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Johnny Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airbud Garber, Royal Fluff, and his coach, Cover Terry, Siren, Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse says, well, I guess what lots of people have been saying must be a little true. And LOT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Oh, God, they're dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate you greatly, all of you greatly, for making sure to get that correct. Truly an incredible and profound sort of a thing to know that the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps never misses a Morse code message. And I gotta say, a big congrats to all y'all once again. And with that, we're gonna be moving on into the live chats. Due to time constraints tonight, the fact that we're going overtime by about 4 minutes, we are gonna be making sure to get 3 live chat questions due to time constraints, and then we're gonna be rounding the stream out for the night. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to David Tablet, who said, if Russia collapses economically, how will that affect the economy of the world as a whole?
Not really a lot, actually. Russia's economy is basically in a bubble at this point on its own. So if the Russian economy collapses, the fallout from that, or really the aftershocks of that globally, are going to be incredibly small for the larger part. Probably minor disturbances at best could be described within the region around Russia, and it practically be a non-existent impact to the United States. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to, in the live chat, of course, this one goes to AF Kaplan, who said, now that Russia has rejected all attempts at a peace or a ceasefire, what will happen now regarding U.S. support for Ukraine?
I wouldn't know. I have a feeling that we're probably going to keep the current approach we are right now, which is giving them nothing and letting Europe buy everything for them instead. Which honestly, I don't really think that's a good approach anymore. I think that's a quite weak approach considering what the Russians have been doing. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Snowy. And Snowy said, all these economical setbacks that run in the tens or hundreds of billions, what effect does that have on Russia's nuclear deterrence?
It generally has the effect that they're probably deferring maintenance somewhere, and they may be deferring maintenance on their nuclear arsenal. So it's probably decreasing the efficacy of their rockets, the chances that they'll actually work if they're fired, and also the nuclear warheads that are on top of those rockets as well. Could be affecting both of them simultaneously, but once again, it's really hard to say because they could be diverting funds from anywhere to try and cover these shortfalls. So we don't really know if it's coming from the strategic arsenals or not, and if they aren't, then the damage and impact is going to be felt elsewhere in Russia, and that could be from about a couple of thousand different places. So with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can. And with that, folks, it's time for us to round out this stream for the night. Oh, buddy. What a long stream it was. It was 3 hours and 36 minutes. And if you're under 30, Cuomo's always flirty. I don't know why I had to throw that in, but for some reason, I was compelled to do it right there. I was compelled to do it. But with that, folks, it's time for us to round out the stream. I got to give a huge thanks. We actually had a huge amount of people here tonight. 12.5 thousand people. That's actually unreal. We didn't believe that we had that many people here tonight, the day before Thanksgiving, and 80,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. I gotta say a huge thanks to all y'all once again. I gotta say that since we were fighting in the back of that cab in '92, it's really changed a lot around here, and I gotta thank y'all massively once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on rolling, and also enjoying the news tonight. We will of course not be on air tomorrow on the 27th of November of 2025 due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but we will be back on air and resuming our normal schedule after tomorrow. And so with that, we will see you all on Friday to cover the next 48 hours of news from around the world on the 28th of November. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Rom Slava, long live the Lead Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for joining us. So once again on November the 26th of the another night of War News streaming. And also, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving tomorrow. Eat well and have a good time as well. And we will see you all on Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And also, if there is enough news to cover, I will be putting out a short war video. I don't care if it's Thanksgiving. I'll be putting out a short war video anyway to make sure that news is covered midday if there is enough news. And we'll have to wait and see because usually things calm down over holidays, but at the same time, you never really can tell. It could pop off tomorrow and possibly, so we'll have to see. But anyways, folks, thank you all for joining us once again. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest and good night.
Army shall